What's good, YouTube? And before the video starts, I just wanted to say thank you guys for supporting this series. I thought it would be helpful if I just took all the videos that I made for how to play CS and put them into one video so you guys can bookmark it, like it, do whatever you want, save it, just so you have one big video for how to play CS2. This series has taken me from 300 subs to 7,500, which is just absolutely mind-blowing to me. And it's even taken some of you up, 4 levels on Faceit, 5 levels on Faceit. The amount of times people come in my stream and say, hey, your videos have helped me gain so much elo is just so cool to me. And as more maps come out, I'll keep updating the series for how to play the new maps at a high level as well. But with that all being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. All right, what's up, YouTube? Basically what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be showing you how to IGL on Mirage. Just basic IGL stuff. This would be good to have a starting point when you are creating a team. Yeah, so I'm just going to go over the basics of Mirage. You will not, I'm going to tell you right now, you are not going to reinvent Mirage if you think you have a more aggressive or a more passive team. That is not how this map works. That is not how any map works. Basically, there are certain truths to every map. There are certain rules you have to follow to play every map to its highest percentage, which at a high level, that is pretty much what you're doing, is you're just trying to play maps at the highest percentage. So take mid, for example. The CT's goal on Mirage is to have a good defense on mid or A, because you're not going to be able to have a good defense on both, or else your numbers will be spread too thin, or you won't be playing someone B and you'll rather be playing 3 on mid or 2 on A. And the reason why you want mid or you want A is because if you have mid, then you know that you can safely retake A and you won't get flanked. And if you have A, then you can hold the bomb site. They can't plant. They have to plant to win, etc., etc. Yeah, so this general rule for CT sides, pretty much every single pro team follows. And the reason why I mentioned that sometimes they won't play a B player is because in the pro scene, it's fairly common, or at least more common than other maps, that teams won't play a player at B. And the reason for this is because going B kind of sucks. It does suck. You have to cross this angle that there could be an op on. You have to cross this angle there could be an op on. You have to get out of apartments, and to be able to get out of here, you're going through a hallway. It can get mollied, it can get naded, it can get smoked. It's a bad place to go if they know you're going there. So because of that, what teams will do on their CT sides is the B player will come out here, go molly upper B, or he'll throw his normal, his starting utility that he'll normally throw, and then he'll shift up cat. And the B player, or it will be the cat player, one of the two, will actually become the cat player for the rest of the round, and they won't play anyone B. So when you see this happen in pro matches, they'll usually try to get into ladder, or they'll play around this area so they can't get spotted from apps, because there is no one holding apartments. And then let's say you have enough info that the T's have not taken mid. This cat player can shift up cat, whoever started a window with the op, or whoever was con, or whoever started in this general area of the map, can now rotate towards B and pick up halls. Now you have a guy up cat. So this guy can go into ladder room or something. He can hold for window boost, because holding for window boost is extremely important when you're not playing on mid. And then you can play 3 towards A defense. And like I was saying earlier, if you have 3 towards A, you can hold the bomb site. If you have a guy in ladder, he can communicate if they're going up con, if they're doing mid control, things like that. And then you have one guy at B. And this is another scenario I've talked about in YouTube Shorts before, is if you are a solo site anchor on A or B, and you don't have help from either bodies, which means basically players being around you, or flashes, smokes, all that stuff, you need to play retake, or you need to get 2 kills. Those are your only 2 options as a site anchor to have a successful round. And the reason for this is if you don't get 2 kills, and you die, let's say you die on site and you die fairly quick, right? That means that because none of your players were near you, they won't be able to get to site quick enough to deny the T's taking control, right? So let's say you're a B anchor and you're jump spotting, right? You're jump spotting. Oh, you spot people, you drop a smoke, you play around it. Let's say you get spammed through your smoke, or you die before the smoke pops, right? Because there's no rotate, the T's can now have all of sight and even push to market door. They can push up cat to get right? And this is a very, very hard scenario to retake from the CTs. So this is why the site anchor, if you're jump spotting B and you're alone, that's why you'll see players, they'll jump spot, oh, saw someone, drop smoke, run away. And they'll just run to market door, and they'll run away and they'll hide. And the reason why they do this is because everyone else can rotate in, and now you have, a 3, a 4, or 5-man retake, and you have market control. And this is the whole concept behind what being an anchor is you're trying to control areas of the map, large areas of the map, and it doesn't, controlling them does not mean that you have to have them. It means you have to be aware of what can happen in those areas of the map that you're controlling, right? Yeah, basically you don't need to be on site to know that the T's are out apps and they're in bench or they are planting, right? You don't need to be in sight to know that information. Same thing goes for A. That's why you'll see a lot of pro players jump spot. They'll jump spot, cool, drop a smoke, live. They just live, and then they fall back, right? And they're not trying to play for kills. They're not trying to, do anything crazy. They're slightly delaying the site execute because now there's a one-way smoke that the T's have to deal with at CT. But they're just feeding information. If you ever see a pro match and you see an anchor jump spotting and he runs away to spawn, you will pretty much never see his mouth stop moving. He will always be like, yeah, they're out A. They just flashed. They just mollied. They could plant. Let's retake from spawn. They're saying all these useful communications. And that is consistent with almost every single pro team's A anchor. That is consistent with almost every single pro team's B anchor. If the T's decide to go B, the anchor will always be feeding information to the rotates, so the rotates can get a good picture on what's going on, and then you make a retake. So that's the site anchors. Now we want to talk about rotates. So basically the con player's job is to slow down mid control in a way that makes it look like the CTs could be fighting it, right? And like I was saying earlier, the CTs need to play for A or they need to play for mid. So basically by making it look like you're fighting for mid, you're confusing the T's. A lot of T defaults at a high level, and this is another thing about calling on T side. And this is part of the reason why I've gone into the CT side first, is because to be able to call a good T side, you want to understand the CT side as much as you can. So a lot of the goals of T side Mirage is you're just trying to figure out where the CTs are. You're just trying to figure out, are they playing on mid? Are they playing on A? Do they have a guy pushed up or B? Are they playing a person in ladder? All these little details will help you read the CT setups and then make a good end round call. And that's all that calling is. On a default, all you're trying to do is figure out what the CTs are doing and how you're supposed to play around it, right? So let's say, as the con player for CT, you throw this bottom con smoke, which is fairly common right now, because this con smoke allows you to run out underpass, peek underpass. It allows you to play around here, which is kind of hard to deal with it if you're T. So let's say you throw this bottom con smoke, you come out, and you molly box, you run back away into con. It's a bad box molly, but you get it. Now, if the T's are playing outside of mid, the T's will now say, oh, shoot, they mollied box. Let's say you throw a flash as well. Your teammate from A throws a flash over mid. Your cat player throws a flash as well. They mollied box. They flashed mid twice. I think the CTs are playing on mid. This is how you mess up a T side call, right? If I'm the IGL on T side, and I hear my mid player screaming for their life like the CTs are playing on mid, I'm probably going to say go A, or if we're towards B, I'm going to say let's speed up on B, right? And this is how you confuse lower level teams. You basically fake the control you're playing for on CT side, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So at a higher level, if I'm a T side caller and my teammates, and at a higher level, again, your mid player, because you are at a higher level, should be able to recognize if it's a fake mid control, if it is a real mid control, everything that comes with that. If I'm at a higher level and let's say my mid player isn't the best, and I know he will get scared by a lot of util and all this stuff, I'm not going to speed up into A or B immediately, because I know that it is extremely common in high-level Counter-Strike to fake mid control. That's why over the last 2 years, you've seen a lot of teams have just started mollying box on their CT side on default, right? A lot of window players, when they get smoked window, they'll just come over here, they'll molly box. And the reason this is to try and confuse the T's, right? If the T's don't smoke this box molly and no one crosses to del pan, right? Let's say you're, you have a guy like Con and he doesn't hear anyone swing to del pan, or your cat player gets up cat and he doesn't see anyone cross to del pan, then you know that the T's probably don't have mid control. So as CTs, that means because they don't have mid, either you want to take mid and play on mid, and you basically play for a late take from the T's, or you play on A site, because if the T's aren't mid, the likelihood they're towards A is a lot higher. And this is, again, what I was talking about earlier with percentages. A lot of high-level Counter-Strike is just percentages. It's just, if they're not here, then they're probably there. And if they're not there, they're probably here, right? But yeah, that's basically that's Mirage from a CT side perspective. Now, if we're talking about from T side perspective, the A in the mid concept is what you call a map theory. B doesn't necessarily follow, it isn't extremely important in the Mirage map theory. It is to a certain extent, but if you look at pro matches and everything, teams usually usually, unless it's anti-strat or something. The only times they go B on gun rounds is if they split cat. If they split B, let's say they send, 2 upper B, 3 up cat, or 1 upper B, 4 up cat. They'll either do that or they will pop B on like a pistol round, right? Rarely do teams do outright B executes. And again, that's because coming out B apps kind of sucks. Right? You're stuck in a tunnel. If they know you're coming, you're screwed. That's why B doesn't really factor in as much as A and mid, because you can do a lot more with A, you can do a lot more with mid, and you can also play with rotates a lot more because, again, with B, you generally have one B anchor and your cat player goes up cat, right? So B is generally less defended than A. So yeah, B is generally less defended than A, but the reason why that is because B sucks, and because B sucks, then you want to try and work mid and A and rotates as much as you can. So as an IGL, and I'll get, this is the T side part of it. As an IGL, what you want to do is on your default, you want to figure out what the CTs are doing, and to do that, you will default. Now you'll see teams running these kind of defaults where they'll basically smoke top mid, or they'll smoke window, hold up, or they'll smoke window. Basically what this allows is if the CTs are going to fight on mid, they're going to have to molly box, and they're going to have to run up mid to be able to fully clear mid, right? Because this smoke is so wide, you can kind of sit in the open here. Sometimes people will nade it. But by the time this molly fades, you can't be seen from mid valley with the smoke. So basically what this smoke does is, from the T's perspective, if the CTs play in valley, it doesn't matter. If they molly box, it doesn't matter. You can still go out mid late. So this forces the CTs to basically run up mid and full fight for mid, and that gives you a lot more information. And again, the whole point of a default is you're trying to get information on what the CTs are doing. I just aim locked. I don't know what that was. But yeah, so the most standard default you'll see in Pro CS is generally like a top mid smoke or a window smoke, maybe 1 or 2 mid flashes, and then you'll see 2 people sit out top mid and 2 people sit outside underpass. Now what they'll do is they'll sit here for a little bit until the IGL will call when they want to take mid, and then when they want to take mid, that's when the underpasses people will start working. And it will generally be after the first wave of utility from the T's has stopped, because that allows the CTs time to retake, which again gives you more time to get information on what the CTs are doing. And if the CTs retake mid and you have 2 outside mid, 2 underpass, the CTs will take mid and they'll say, yo, mid is clear, this is great. Little do they know, you're about to take it after they take it. So basically, after they take mid or after the mid smokes fade, you give them a little bit of time for the CTs to retake mid and get a little more information in mid. And then if your caller, if your IGL says, yo, let's walk up underpass or let's start taking mid, that's when these guys will start coming up underpass, and you want to make sure the underpass guys go out underpass at the same time as the top mid guys. And the reason you do this is because, let's say when you retake mid, you want to do a window smoke, and you'll have the underpass guys smoke top con. Is you'll send 2 towards top mid. These guys will get ready to go. The smoke pops, so it gives the CTs a bit of a warning, but that's okay because you have 4 people there. And the underpass guys will come up. They'll throw some flash like this, or like this, or the top mid guys will flash con for them. That was a bad flash, but basically the underpass guys will come out mid at the same time as the top mid guys. This flash will blind the con opper. If there's anyone off cat, the top mid guys will trade them. And if there's anyone who is in mid valley looking at top mid or underpass, they'll just get crunched by the top mid guy and the underpass guy. And this is how you'll see teams at a high level structure their mid takes. It will vary. I think teams are doing this smoke more than a top con smoke now, just because CS2, the smoke covers a lot more area than it did in CSGO. But generally, this is how you'll see teams retake mid. Now, once you have this information that the CTs aren't playing on mid and you're on T side, now you have to decide what you're going to do with the rest of the round. So if you think as an IGL that there's going to be 3 people towards A, and generally how that looks is you'll have 1 guy in sight, 1 guy spawn or stair, and then 1 guy window or jungle. This means that the B rotate will be slow, and if there's a guy up cat, he's generally going to be isolated because teams will generally not leave B unattended to. So what you can call in this situation, if you know that there's 3A and you know that there's only 2 towards B and the B guys might be on separate islands, is with this con smoke or with a resmoke on con and let's say a molly into window, you can now split B. And this is how teams will generally go towards B, is after a mid default or a slow mid default, they'll split up cat and they'll just take B site. The reason for this is because teams want to play on A or they want to play on mid. Once you clear mid, you know they're generally going to be towards A, which means the rotates will be slow and you can go up cat. One of the top mid guys or the underpass guys or the A lurk, any one of those 3 people can come back upper B. They can smoke market window for you. One of the other mid guys can flash cat. And now you have a decent B split going on, right? and you have like 3 or 4 people coming up cat, 2 people coming up upper B with some flashes. Some good flashes for upper B are these flashes, and I'll throw it as a nade so that you can see where it pops. Basically, you throw it over there like that, and it pops up here. So basically what this will do is this will blind anyone on this angle, it will blind anyone on this angle, it will blind anyone back sights, it will blind anyone bench, and it won't blind any of your cat players because it pops above this building. So you can throw 2 of these flashes as your teammates are scaling up cat, and there's actually a pretty high percentage that you'll be able to take the site with this. And again, this is generally how you'll see teams take B. So let's say we're going to go towards A and we want to go towards A off of this default, right? Let's say we have a read that maybe the opper is towards B. You don't want to run up cat because it's a long range fight against an op. So what you'll end up doing is, let's say you smoke cat instead of connector, right? You'll still get the molly down on window. And now you have the A lurk, because again, there's only 2 top mid, 2 underpass, so there should be an A lurk. If he's ramp, he can flash jungle for you like this. If he's palace, he can flash jungle for you like this after he like kind of spots across. And what that flash does is, remember how I said that if there's 3 towards A, it's generally going to be 1 stair or CT, 1 in sight, and 1 in jungle. Now, if you molly window and you smoke cat, this window guy is going to come around and be like, holy crap, they're going con. Oh my god. And then he'll come over here and eat this flash. He might be able to see it from over here, but that's okay, because, again, you should be able to trade out on this guy if you're going 3 people up connector or 4 people up connector. And you trade out on this guy, now there's only 2 people on A. Now, if there's only 2 people on A, again, like I said, either he's going to be in this stair cubby or it's going to be in sight or spawn. Now, because of this, they're on 2 separate islands. As the con player, you can also flash for your palace player, right? You can throw this flash, which pops in front of palace right here. This guy can fight spawn, and because this guy flashed here, the A players know that this guy's in palace, so one's probably going to be holding him. Now you can flash for him, and he can get this free kill, and after he gets that free kill, you guys scale up, this guy is in palace, you can trade out on the under palace guy. Now this whole system is pretty basic. If we're talking about pro level teams, pretty much every team is aware of the concept of play for mid or play for A and how to split bomb sites. But for the most part, at a lower level of competition, this is the secret sauce to getting to the next league. I made ECL before I even knew anything about this, and once I made it into ECL and started learning all the map theories on the different maps, that's when I became a much greater caller. And within this system, teams will be able to form their identities, right? How I said at the beginning, if you have an aggressive team or a passive team, you're not going to reinvent how the map is played. It is generally played by the basic same set of rules across the board. But within this construct of a theory, this is how you'll be able to make different ways of creating a default. Maybe you have a lot of aggressive players. Maybe they like to go top mid other than underpass because underpass, let's say they like the angles better on top mid. Or let's say they like a faster pace kind of game. Then you can do more fast mid controls. You can do more, early round lurks. You can do more 2 people ramp, 2 people palace, lurk out early when you think the CTs are playing on mid. You can do a lot more of these little gimmicky plays or tweaks to a default to tailor to your team's skill set. But for the most part, this is generally going to be the same all across the board. What's up, YouTube? I'm going to be doing another breakdown video. Today is going to be Inferno. You guys seem to like the last Mirage video, so I think I'm going to be doing more of these map breakdown videos, just at like a higher level for like teams or players who want to get to a higher level would face it. And yeah, general stuff like that. So to start out, I'm just going to talk about Inferno at like a base level. It's not going to be played the same way as some other maps. The reason why I like doing breakdowns on Mirage and Inferno is because the concepts that apply to Mirage and Inferno can actually be applied to many other maps. Mirage is more of you play the avoidance game on T side, you try to figure out where the CTs are and not go to where they are, whereas Inferno is more of a push and pull, and you are the one on T side who kind of dictates where the CTs are going, and it's up to the CTs to understand when the Ts are trying to do that at a high level. Pretty much what it is. The whole game of Inferno is just push and pull. And what I mean by that is because the areas of control on Inferno are so close to the bomb sites, as opposed to Mirage. Again, Apps is close to the bomb site, but Apps sucks to go through. But for the most part, teams will be defaulting mid or doing executes, things like that. But basically, the thing about Inferno is you don't have as much of a heads up on CT side as you would on Mirage. On Mirage, you see A smokes coming over. You have time to drop smokes, Molotovs. It's harder to do site pops, basically, on Mirage, at least for A. but pretty much both sites on Inferno can be treated like exaggerated versions of their Mirage counterparts. So for instance, B on Inferno, you are extremely close to the bomb site where you would normally execute from, which is in the car position. So it's up to the CTs to try and deny this control or make it very, very hard or taxing on the Ts to take in the form of util, bodies, etc., etc. Whereas if you look at A is kind of a harder place to execute. I would consider, or I would compare to A on Mirage, just in the sense that if you're a CT, you generally have a heads up on what's going on when the execute is coming in and what they're going to throw for the execute. So at a base level, the CT's job on Inferno is to try and slow down the T's default, similar to the con player's role on Mirage that I talked about in the last video. Essentially what the CTs are going to be doing is slowing down the T's, making it very, very taxing for them to take control, and using the information on how they're taking the control to dictate what you think the T's are going to be doing. So it's normal to see CTs go for banana control, and generally what that would look like is like a bottom banana smoke. Pro teams are throwing the bottom mid smoke from CT, and that bottom mid smoke blocks off banana and bottom mid. Let's see if I remember the lineup. So you come up into this little corner with the chair, you aim to the top right of this dot, and you just normal jump throw. And basically how this will pop is it will block off banana, it will block off mid, and it will slow down the T's very, very hard in the control that they're taking. And basically what this does is it means that if the T's are going to take banana within the first 20 seconds, they have to force through a bottom banana smoke, which percentage-wise, and again, when you're playing at a high level, you're trying to play all the maps to a highest percentage, that's going to suck for the T's. It's going to be hard to control. It's going to be hard to take. They have to play through a smoke, which means they could be running into a molly. They could be running into nades. And one of the concepts you want to know as a B player on Inferno on CT side is that there are only so many places that the T's can be. And this is part of the reason why the Astralis meta back in 2018, 2019, 2020 was so strong, is because Inferno was one of their best maps. And basically what they did is the way teams were playing banana before this is they would smoke deep, they'd throw some nades to do damage, but not necessarily take control. What Astralis ended up doing is they would do deep smoke, they would do a close molly, they would do a molly for either logs or broom, and they would nade the other side. And basically what this does is the only place that the T's can be in banana is either close half wall, they can either be logs or broom, or they're behind the smoke, right? So what they do with this util is they block off that, and let's say they double nade logs, right? Now the T's cannot be in banana whatsoever without even peeking. You know this information, right? So what they would do is they'd throw this utility, they'd rotate one off, and then once this guy took banana, he would get dropped a smoke or something, and he'd jump spot. And if he sees any of the T's, he'd either smoke half wall, he'd either, smoke them off, he'd get this control. And this allows for a rotate from the CTs. And one of the things about Inferno is that the CT rotations are extremely long. So the reason why it's somewhat tough to play CT side on Inferno is because if you gamble the wrong bomb site, you're essentially going to be losing the round. I just aim locked again. Dude, it happened in the first video. But yeah, those CT rotates are so long, and the ways you pop into sites as Ts is so short comparatively if you compare the distance, that as CTs you have to make really, really, really good reads on where you think the Ts are going. How you're going to do that is by taking banana control, by having bracket control, trying to get your opper to get picks, because another concept that I want to kind of harp on here is it's okay to stack the wrong bomb site if you have a man advantage. Man advantages are extremely important on Inferno. Generally, the best teams on Inferno have the highest conversion rate for 5v4 situations. So what that means is basically if they get an opening pick, they have the highest rate of converting that round into a round win. And the reason why is because let's say your opper gets an opening pick in bottom mid, or let's say he goes for a pick down alt, right? Now you're playing a 5v4. You don't need a ton of numbers or a ton of utility to retake in a 5v4 situation. You can run down the clock. You can use a ton of utility. Again, there's only 4 players. You have 5 players. You should be winning the situation majority of the time. So what teams will do is they'll go for a lot of opening picks. You'll see oppers go for a lot of opening picks on Inferno, and then they'll fall back and stack a bomb site. And the reason why you stack a bomb site in this scenario is because if you have your opper go to the site that's not stacked, let's say he gets a pick on the execute and he dies, or let's say he's able to spam one through a smoke or look over a smoke or do normal gimmicky things that oppers do to get picks. If he gets another opening on the site execute, which generally if you're CT side, you're holding an angle, think of percentages. If they are coming at you, you're standing still with a one-shot gun posted on them, chances are you're going to get the kill more than them so you should come out on top of that situation majority of the time, and retaking a site 5v3 should be a guaranteed win. So this is what teams will do on Inferno if they get the opening pick, is they'll shift the numbers in a way that makes sense with the opper and with the numbers and with the information that the Ts have given them. So this is all baseline Inferno theory. Now we'll get into like the more push and pull T side of it, okay? So again, like I said earlier, the rotates for the CTs are very, very hard, and the goal of the Ts is to try and pull the rotations from the CTs so that they can go to the bomb site with the least amount of players. Now, how teams will do that, and how teams did that on the old Inferno, is they would do, at least pro-level teams, is they would do, let's say, a porch molly. They would do, sometimes they do a molly for arch. They'd flash, you know, throw a couple flashes in bracket, and they would throw this smoke. And this smoke is still being used in CS2, not as much just because the way the gaps are here. You can boost over it very easily, get a pick. You can nade the smoke and try and catch a lurk. This smoke is somewhat nerfed by the way the new smoke mechanics work in CS2, but for the most part, the map is generally played the same. This smoke takes away the information from the opper who's CT. And remember how I was talking about how the opper like falls to like these kind of angles and just tries to pick the Ts when they're taking map control. So if you throw this smoke and you Molotov off lane, now this opper's isolated, or whoever is in this position is isolated. And that puts this arch player in a very, very weird situation. With this smoke coming down, he is forced essentially into this position. Now, if you flash this position, he has to make a decision. Do I get flash and fall back and hold the wrap, or the threat is that they could smoke this off and then wrap A. So while you're in CT, your rotate's going to be too long to library. Let's say they smoke library as well. Now they're doing an A split, and just because they threw the smoke, they now isolated you, and now you have left only 1 or 2 players on the A bomb site, which percentage-wise is very, very bad if a team is wrapping towards A. If a team is wrapping towards A, you want at least generally 3 people fighting that wrap, or else you won't come out on top of the situation. It basically forces this arch player into a very weird position where it's, do I fall back and hope that they push me CT, or do I rotate around library and allow the Ts to be able to wrap B, which again, if the Ts wrap B with numbers, if they have like 3 people going towards CT, 4 people going towards CT, something like that, then this is a very tough situation to hold. This guy will probably get isolated, and then the B players are going to be stuck having to either fight into banana or play into site and fight the CT wrap, which again can just get smoked or mollied in backhaul, and then boom, you lost the site, you don't have CT control. It's just a very, very weird round at that point. But this is just a way you can bully the CTs for having a long rotation, and especially the nature of Arch is that you generally only have 1 here, because if you have 2 here, then there's going to be a gap either on A for like a Halls pop or a lane pop, or there's going to be a gap on B because you're playing 1B. Let's say you have 2 A site and then 2 towards Arch, so you're playing 1B. So this basically just abuses the fact that the rotations are very long, so whoever is in this position needs to be ready to rotate at all times to go to B. Generally, the Arch player is going to be the first B rotate. So this guy needs to make so many decisions, and this is why you want generally your best players or your best thinkers, generally your smartest players on your team, to be the Arch player, because this guy has to make so many round-deciding decisions on CT side that could win you or lose you the game. And then how lane or halls work is similar to the way that apps doesn't really factor into the map theory as much, because going out apps kind of sucks on Mirage. Inferno is the same way. Coming out of halls, if they know that you're coming halls, they can just smoke you off. They can molly you. You know, you're running out into a balcony in the middle of site. There's backside angle, mid-side angle, pit, mini pit. There's all these angles you have to deal with halls. So the only reason you would be going halls is if you think, 1, the CT's numbers are slim, or 2, they're just not expecting it. And that's why teams will use Halls pops, is they will use them when they think the other team isn't expecting it. Generally, they won't use it as their main way of popping A, just because if CTs know it's coming, it sucks. And then the last thing for A would be a lane pop, which will just consist of an arch smoke, a couple over Halls flashes, maybe a big pit molly. Your Halls guy can throw these flashes for you, which pop back sight. They won't blind you coming up lane. They will blind anyone mini pit who's forced out from the molly. They'll blind anyone rotating moto. Anyone backside on this area will also get blind by this flash. Anyone over here will get blinded by this flash. And that's why you'll see a lot of pro teams throw flashes like this. If you're coming up lane, sometimes the entry will throw this kind of flash and run up like this. But basically what you'll see on Inferno is you will rarely ever see executes come out from the Ts. It will almost always be sight pops unless they're doing an arch wrap. Just because of the choke points. And what I mean by choke points is pretty much every position on this map where you'd be coming into the bomb site from as a T side can get mollied or blocked by 1 smoke or 1 molly. And what I mean by that is you can molly halls, obviously, all of halls. You can molly lane, which covers all of lane. You can molly banana, you can molly this, you can molly this, right? There's all these sorts of mollies that will essentially completely block the entrance to the bomb site. But yeah, at a basic level, that's pretty much all you need to know as far as sites go, or general site hitting theory, if I were to coin a term for it. If you were to play at like an advanced level or even like an advanced playoff level, that's the basic understanding that you really need to have for the sites. Now, to be able to hit a bomb site effectively, you need to know how to push rotates, pull rotates, etc., etc. And you will do that by taking bracket or taking car. Now, similar to the theory on Mirage, where it's you need to, as a CT, play for mid or you need to play for A, the CTs on Inferno have a very similar theory to be able to play the map to its highest percentage, which is you need to either play for car or you need to play for bracket. If you hold both, chances are your numbers are spread a little too thin to be able to have a good bomb site hold. And what I mean by that is if you have 3 people towards bracket and 2 people in car, you have a strong bracket hold, you have a strong car hold, but now apps is open. You have to have one guy either lane holding apps like this, or someone boosted and someone under holding like this. Just general things like that. But you're essentially going to be leaving big gaps in your CT sides if you play very hard on bracket or you play very hard on car. So what CTs will do is they'll play for one or the other. And that's why you'll see pro teams start 3B, or they'll start 4 towards A when they're doing like an early A thing. And in a 3B scenario, basically what's going to be happening is the CTs will need to take banana control early on in the round. How the Ts can stop this is they can throw smoke in the middle of banana or something like this that will make it hard for the CTs to push. But if you have 3B, generally you want to be taking banana control almost every single time, because the amount of util that you'll be throwing to guarantee banana control will be able to tell the Ts that, hey, we have 3B right now, and then the Ts, if it's a good caller, will probably call a speed up A, even if bracket is smoked. Now, if the B player is solo and you guys are playing 4 on A early, then the B player's job is to essentially make B look scarier than it actually is. He can do that by doing util, he can do that by spamming smokes, he can do that by doing all sorts of stuff. But basically, what he'll be doing is he'll be either mollying half wall like this, he'll be smoking on top of it after, and from T side, right, you're not going to be going through this molly, you're probably not going to be going through the smoke, and by the time the A players are done doing their A stuff, either getting set up in halls, getting set up in bracket, this player will have rotated now by the time the Ts realize, oh shit, they only had one B the entire time. That's why you'll see a lot of slow rounds played on Inferno. For instance, VP play an extremely slow Inferno, and generally their late round site hits are always going to be good. The reason for this is because they spend the entire round figuring out where the CTs are playing, what their rotates are looking like, how close their rotates are, and where the CTs are playing from. Pretty much all Jame calls on Virtus Pro is just extreme percentage gameplay. Basically, he's running down the clock and using it as, you know, a 6th teammate in a way. So he's going to be running down the clock to the point where the CTs are like, oh, there's no way they're going to hit this bomb site with this amount of time left. I'm going to rotate, or vice versa, or I'm going to commit into site. And then just when you think you have the read right on CT side, last second Virtus Pro is going to be popping into the bomb site, running a wrap, running alert play, or something like that. And that is how you will play Inferno to its highest percentage, is you're going to be playing with rotates, figuring out where the CTs are playing, and hitting a bomb site like I've been saying. Now, I'm not going to go into how to hit bomb sites. For instance, like Inferno utility, or like B site utility, or A site utility, all this stuff. You know, you can get the nades from Nard out here, or someone who does specific grenade content. Generally, what I'm talking about here is just theory, concepts of how to play maps. The individual micro utility that you're going to be throwing is not something I really need to go over for you to understand the map. You just need to understand what to do, when to do it, how to do it. And just elaborating on the part I was talking about with Jame, is you'll see them run slow T-sides, and the way that they'll run slow T-sides is they'll wait out the utility the CTs throw. So let's say the CTs start the round, let's say they're 3B, and the A guy wants to look big and scary, scarier than he actually is because it's only 1 or 2 people at A. So he'll smoke bracket early, he'll molly into halls like this after he smokes bracket, he'll do things like that. And basically what VP does is they'll say, okay, that's fine if you're going to make it look scarier than it actually is when you're only 1 or 2 there, you're going to throw a ton of util for that. So now we're going to wait out that util, so now that util is useless. And in a way, that is kind of the goal of the CTs. You want to make this T's wait so that you can get rotates through. But what VP does is because they play an extreme time game, you're going to be needing that utility late into the round. But yeah, I think that's it for a general overview of Inferno and how to call it, and general like how the map is played. Pretty much to sum it up, it's just all playing rotations as T side, Pretty much every single map as a caller, every default, every slow round, anything like that, you're going to be trying to get as much information as possible from your defaults. I showed a couple ways of how to do that with the Arch utility with some banana stuff. But for the most part, as a T-side caller, you're just going to be trying to figure out where the CTs are playing from and then make your end round call. So what we're going to be looking at in this video is what the CT's rotations should look like on Anubis, how the Ts are able to abuse them, and why faking on this map is so strong. So a normal setup from the CTs will generally look like one player towards A, one or two players towards mid, and then two players towards B. One of the B players' jobs are going to be looking at E-box, making sure he has all the information the CTs need regarding E-box, and the other player is going to be focused on B main. Now, a default on T-sides for this map is generally going to look like one player over towards B, dealing with B control, maybe one or two players over towards mid. You're going to have an A defaulter, and you're going to have someone who controls towards E-box. Now, you usually have the opper be the one who controls towards E-box, because if a CT tries to go for a peek on the window, he can try and pick him with the op. If a CT tries to peek for E-box, he can pick him with the op. So this is generally where the opper will stay. Now, if the default is going to be, you know, two or three players towards over here, this is when you'll see teams try to take E-box, and they'll have maybe one or two players walk up, they'll get close, they'll throw a molly off the wall like this, and then boom, you have E-box control, and that's how some teams will take E-box, but generally this stays the same between all teams. You have an E-box player, an E-box support player, a mid player, and a B player. You rarely ever have A defaults, but some teams do have A defaults, which I will explain in this clip. The only thing about a main control is you don't really need a ton of players to take it. You can just do it with a lineup smoke that pops there and a molly that pops here, and then pretty much you have all of a main control. The CTs can't really do anything to deny this. That's why you'll see in pro play there's a designated A defaulter, and everyone else will be working the areas of the map that they want to work within the round that the caller is calling. Now, the reason I explain the T side first is for your CT setups to make sense, you need to understand what the Ts are doing, what control they're trying to take, and where the majority of them are. So most mid players will come out here and start the round by smoking this, and then maybe throwing a nade behind it off the start. This nade will do damage to anyone who's behind the smoke and be trying to get an early fight on mid, or it will just damage anyone who's going for the early boost. Now, it's common practice from the Ts to be able to smoke house, which I'll show you the lineup here. You get in this corner, you aim into the lower third of this rectangle, and you just left and right click jump throw, and then you'll come up to this box right here, aim here, and just normal throw that Molotov. This smoke will land in house, this Molotov will Molotov the doors, and this will take a lot of information away from the CTs. So as a CT, you also have to think, this is probably what I'm going to be facing when the Ts are taking mid. That's why you'll see some players have the A player come over and hold a flash for the mid guy that will look like this. And then when the mid guy wants the flash, once they molly the doors, he will flash. And the mid guy who is sitting here, the molly pops. He peeks with the flash, tries to get an early fight. And this molly is very dependent on how the Ts throw it. Sometimes they'll throw it and it will burn all of this area, but it will leave this back wall safe. Sometimes it will burn into the doors in this back area, but there's a big area here that's safe. And you kind of just have to read what Molotov the Ts are going to throw, what version of it they're going to throw, and how you can abuse it. And building off that concept of the A player coming over to support, he can just come over here, hold this flash whenever the mid player needs it, maybe on like a 5 to 10 second timer. You don't want to leave A too open for too long. And then after that, he can just walk back towards A and play retake from the broken wall position. Now, because the A player was the one who came over to help in mid, that means the second mid player, or the B rotate as the position is called at high levels, will generally be the opper, and he's going to shift throughout the map in a way that makes sense with where the Ts are. That's why you'll usually see this third B player or second mid player be the opper, because his position doesn't necessarily matter for holding a bomb site or holding mid or holding towards A. His role is essentially dependent on where the Ts are, which means he can get a ton of action and just float around the map depending on what action is going on. Because on CT side, the map can be played with really 4 players denying the Ts information until you figure out where the Ts are, and that pretty much dead space until the Ts are going to hit and execute on you or try and split a bomb site is time that this guy could be running around hunting for kills, trying to figure out the rotates, and this is all information that your teammates can be passing to this role to put him in the right position. There's also an important concept I want to talk about in mid regarding when you want to play retake on mid and where the mid player should go. I played mid majority of my career. Mid is such a fun position to play. You get a ton of action. Pretty much the Ts will try and take it almost every single round unless they're doing a direct sight hit. So you get to dictate a lot of rounds from this position, and that's generally the roles that I would play on my teams. But something that's super important as the mid player is if you're going to play off of mid, let's say you guys are playing 3 towards B, that means you're solo towards mid unless the A player leaves A, which, again, if there's 3 towards B and you're the other guy mid, this guy's coming here, he shouldn't really be supporting you mid for the majority of the round. Like I said earlier, it should be like 5 to 10 seconds. He should just leave like a short gap and then go back to A site to hold it, which means you will then be playing retake in mid for the duration of him playing towards A. And if you're going to be playing retake on mid, please try your absolute hardest to not play from temple. Sometimes temple will make sense. This is temple, by the way. Sometimes that will make sense, but again, if you're playing 3 over towards B, you have 1 over towards A, this A player is not going to be able to hold a mid split, and he's not going to be able to hold an A split, and if they smoke you off in temple, what are you going to do? Your teammate now has to get like a 2k or a 3k to be able to win this round, because if he falls back into heaven to play retake on A while you're playing retake on mid, this is what's going to happen. The T's are going to smoke you off, they're going to run through here, and they're either going to trade out your teammate, or they'll just smoke him off. And then the round is essentially over at that point. There is almost zero way you're going to be able to retake the scenario unless you have teammates on the fast flank. And the reason for that is that you have essentially no mid control. You have almost zero A control, and the chance that a guy on heaven gets a kill on an A split or an A execute from here is extremely low. That's why when you play off of mid, you want to play over towards camera, and you can play some off angle like this. You can crouch duck here, and this is a very hard angle for this T's to shoot. It's pretty common at a higher level, so you might get pre-aimed on this, but for lower levels, this will generally be a free kill, and pros still play this angle even though other teams know about it because it is just a good angle. Another thing you could do is you could come over here, and let's say the T's didn't take A main early, and your teammate has some information on A. Now what your A player can do is he can play on some sort of angle like this and hold A main, and what you can do as the mid player is you can sit here and you can actually hold mid from here. You can hold all of the mid cross. So you can still play 3 towards B since you have information on mid, so if they smoke you off or you see players running towards temple to split B, you can just tell your B players, yo, they're splitting B, so you still have information on mid here, so you're still technically doing your job. Now, if they smoke temple and they want to try to come A on you guys, you need to make a decision. Now you got to figure out, are you going to fight the mid players or are you going to fight the A players? Because let's think of this percentage-wise again. If you're going to stay in this position and fight the split with your teammate, let's say after you spot that they're coming and he stands up right here, you're probably not going to come out on top of the situation. The T's are going to be coming through a main and eventually they're going to shoot you in the back. And the camera guys are going to have a ton of numbers. You guys are going to be essentially in the open. And the percent you come out on top of the situation is not the best. So this is why you'll see teams make decisions in scenarios like this, where they'll say, okay, let's fight the mid players or let's fight the A main players. Even if it's a bad fight, they will do it just because it is a higher percentage than getting split on. And this is what it will look like from you as a mid player. Let's say they smoke temple and you think they're going to split towards A. You want to make this call to fight mid or fight A main before the T's come into this area. The reason why is because if your teammate's somewhere over here or somewhere over here or somewhere over here, then he's not going to be able to cross towards A main by the time these guys start splitting through camera. So as soon as a smoke goes down on temple, one of the B guys can rotate over to hold the temple smoke, and you guys can just walk in towards A. And even if you are walking into 2 or 3 players in A main, again, this is still going to be a higher percentage than fighting, you know, both areas at once. I won't say it's a higher percentage than fighting for mid because it's situational on where the numbers from the T's are, but I just really, really want to harp on this because this concept applies to so many maps. For instance, Mirage, you play for mid or you play for A. For Inferno, if you're getting split on B and you're a B player, you choose to either fight the car players or you fight the T players wrapping CT. And for Vertigo, let's say you're a side hall player, you want to fight either the guys running up on site and smoke off side hall, or you want to run into side hall so you don't get shot from the guys running up on site. But yeah, that's it for that concept. I know I kind of harped on that a lot, but it is extremely important. Next thing I'll talk about is shifting the op around. Now, I will say that opping is extremely playstyle dependent. Everyone will have their own ways of opping. Everyone will play different ways, have different comfortability in different situations. But usually how it's used on Anubis is it's used to either get picks or lock down a bomb site. And what I mean by that is if you have a good spawn, let's say for mid, you'll see the opper run up, come over here, and try to pick off anyone on the early peek on mid because the CT will generally get to this angle before the T's if you have a good spawn. Now, let's say they molly you, he'll fall away. If he hasn't shot the op yet, he could stay around towards mid. If he shoots the op, and this is something that applies to almost every single opper's gameplay, if the other team knows where you're opping because you shot the op, you need to reposition if you want to have impact, because all they're going to do once they know you're there with the op is they'll smoke you off, they'll flash you off. If you're playing better players, they're going to make sure your op is going to be useless when they know your op is there. Same thing goes for E-Box. Let's say the opper comes over here, and he gets smoked on E-Box, but just before the E-Box smoke pops, he just takes a shot, right? And this is not necessarily bad for him to shoot, even if he doesn't see anyone, and this is the reason why. After he shoots, everyone on the map on the T side is going to know, hey, the op is E-Box, mid or A will probably be okay to take now. You can rotate around, the B main player might hear you, but you can rotate your op all the way around towards A. And you can just come over here. Might be a better rotate to go CT since they won't hear you from over there, but now you can rotate the op in towards A, which the Ts might be walking into now because they feel comfortable to walk into because they heard your op at B. And now within 15 seconds, I've repositioned to over here, which is a likely place for the Ts to peek pretty carelessly because they think your op is B. And what I meant by saying the opper can lock down a bomb site is the op can come over towards A. And again, these are pretty high percentage angles you can get the picks on. If you don't get flashed off, you can play some angles like this. These will generally net you a good amount of kills, or come up towards broken wall. There's just a lot of angles to op on A. That's generally where you'll see oppers anchor. And teams will put their oppers A alone because of the nature of the angles. There's a lot of different ways you can get opening picks on A pretty comfortably. And because there's only one player towards A, this A player, the opper, probably won't need support from the mid player. So you can dedicate 2 players to mid for almost the entire round and guarantee that mid control, which is another way of switching up your CT side to make it unpredictable for the team that you're playing. Now that we've talked about CT side and rotations, I want to talk about T side and how you can get information on rotations to be able to paint a picture of where the CTs are so that you can make a good end-round call. Now, to be able to use this concept, let's break down what a team is. A team is a collection of 5 players that all want to win and all have microphones and all want to tell each other the best ways to win because they want to win. Now, if you have players spread out across the map, and you want to play for information, your B main player can get into this corner, right? And on the mini map, you can see, I can hear any running within that circle. So any running within that circle, this B main player can now tell the caller the information, right? He can just sit in this corner and just listen. And this could be his default. He could go AFK. He could be in the bathroom with his microphone on and just be saying, yo, one's backside on B. Yo, one's E-Box. Yo, they're 3B right now. We should probably go mid or A. And that's it, right? So if you get information on 2 B players, and let's say the mid player sees a mid smoke, and then the second mid player on the CTs has thrown a nade almost at the same time as the mid smoke, that's information. Now there's 2 mid. So now you know that there's 2 B, there's 2 mid, there's has to be 1 player towards A, and this is how you read rounds on T side. So now you know how you want to play the rotates, right? If you want to play with the rotates, what you'll end up doing is similar to the way you play with the rotates on Vertigo. You're just going to be faking with mid control. So you can throw this mid control nade like I was talking about. You can throw the smoke. You can throw the molly. After you do this, you can then take deeper mid control. Now, what that could look like is you come over into this back corner. You go on the left side of this little wood, and you aim on the right side of this mark right here. I'll zoom in the video. And you just jump through. It smokes off temple. It pops right here. It's not the greatest temple smoke, but it gets the job done. That's how I do it. And yeah, so basically what this will do is whoever was the mid player over here. So what this will do is it'll force the CTs to make a decision. Do we fall back into A and kind of split up? So we play 2 towards A, 1 guy goes over here because again, wrapping B will be a threat if you give up mid. Or do we play on mid and maybe I'll play close doors? My teammate could play over here. And now they're committed in mid. And the thing about CTs committing in mid is because of the nature of the way these angles work, this guy is going to be isolated in the back. You can get your opper to maybe find this pick or find the pick in camera. Or you could have a teammate flash right here, and you can clear the close guy if he's here. Again, CTs like to play on this angle. This is where you be in the position to be able to get these kills. And this will force the CTs to go into either a 3-2 setup, or they're going to be doubled on mid. Now, if they're doubled on mid again, you can throw an A fake, which will push 1 player over towards A. 1 player will pick up mid or go towards A. Since they were double mid, they'll be like, oh, wow, they're going A. We're going to have 3A. This is going to be a great stack. Nope. You're going to be going towards mid. You'll pick up the kill on the mid guy. Now there's only 2 towards B. You can split B. You can drop canals. There's all sort of ways that you can play with the CT's rotates on this map. And part of the reason why it's so easy to play with the CT rotates on this map is because the rotations are super, super quick. And unless you have taken, let's say, E-Box, the CTs will be running this rotate. So the rotates will be extremely quick. They might not run the rotate in camera over towards A because all of A main can be able to hear that. But for the most part, that stays the same, where there will be one floater on the CT side, and he can get pretty careless with his rotates. That's when you'll abuse him. And now let's say they started 3 towards B, 1 towards mid, 1 towards A, which is what the default is. And again, because that is default, majority of the rounds you can kind of expect that to be what it is. You should be able to pressure off the mid guy with just one set of util if he is solo mid, because again, he has to kind of play towards retake. So then after you take mid, again, if you throw this smoke, it will force a rotate from B. You also have to keep in mind that when you're going to be taking mid, that's around the time that the CTs are going to be reacting with B control. Remember the push and pull concept I talked about on Inferno? That still applies to this map. B regression can come in the form of E-Box control, it can come in the form of B main control, B main util, where they try and molly out the B lurk or throw flashes while you guys are working on mid, just trying to isolate the players that are on their own. So while you're doing all this mid stuff, you need to make sure that your whole team is aware what's going on in mid, so that they can be aware of the % chance that the CTs are going to push them on their solo positions. Now if there's a rotate from B that goes towards mid, that means that, again, there will only be one player holding towards B main, or there will be one player holding towards E-Box. This is where you'll overrun the CTs. You can throw all this mid control, you can smoke temple, you can throw flashes in house, you can make it look like you're going mid, and this is one of the benefits of Anubis, is this window. This window is so crucial to mid rounding on Anubis, and the reason why is because you can fake a heavy mid control and immediately drop towards B. And because of this, this means that you can be on B within 5 seconds of being in mid. That is like insanely fast. And by the time the CTs realize that you've done this, or the B players call it out, or the mid player realizes he's heard you dropping into the water, you will actually beat out this palace guy majority of the time, which again means there will still only be 2 towards B. That's why you'll see a lot of teams do deep mid controls with a couple people sitting outside B, and then once they get mid control, they'll drop canals, these B guys will start throwing utility, and then you have a good B split going on when there's only 2 towards B, which percentages you should be picking up unless one of the CTs gets a hero play. But this is why this mid window is so crucial to faking on T side for Anubis, because the Ts can just drop and have an extremely quick lane to B, and also if you take mid, camera will allow you an extremely quick window towards A. And if you don't want to play with the mid players rotate, and you want to just fight him when he's alone, and you don't want to push him off with utility, something you can do is, because of the way that CTs generally play mid, they'll throw this smoke, you know, they'll do some sort of flash, maybe they'll nade behind the smoke, but they'll maybe hold for the boost, or they'll be around this area holding the smoke walkthrough, or they'll be playing it from deep holding house, just not trying to die from anyone in mid. How you can take mid quietly without him getting any information if he isn't holding for the boost is you can actually boost your teammate up here, and with this smoke down from the CTs, you can actually peek over it and see if he's peeking house, or see if he's peeking this little area towards the door. Now, if you see nothing on this angle, you can just have your teammates walk straight through the right side of the smoke and in towards mid. And as a solo mid player, what this will look like is I have smoked mid now. I have maybe flashed mid, naded mid, whatever I normally do at mid. But the Ts haven't responded by doing anything, so mid is probably not where they're going. That is completely false with this play. This play you'll see a lot of pro teams do. It's so common in the pro scene now that as a mid player, this is something you always have to be aware of. But at lower levels, this will destroy mid players. But yeah, that's probably going to wrap up the video. What we've talked about today is what CT rotation should look like, how to abuse them, how to float the op around the map, and why faking on Anubis is so strong. Today we're going to be focusing on Ancient, and by the end of this video, you're going to understand how to be an effective rotator, why playing for mid and playing for B is so important, and why playing slow on T side is so powerful. So first, let's talk about mid and B control. So if you want to take mid, generally what that's going to look like is a bottom mid smoke and a Molotov. How most teams will throw it at a high level is they'll end up doing the spawn-based ones. Now, I'm not going to go into every single smoke that you can throw spawn-based, but let's say you want to throw this one, you go over here, you aim here, and you shift walk jump throw. This is how pro teams are doing it because the T spawns are so quick that you actually need to throw it from spawn if you want to be able to take mid control consistently. They'll usually follow that up with a Molotov that goes over here into this little cubby. So after this util, they can't be peeking mid, they can't be close in the cubby, and now you have pretty much all of mid control. Now Ts will sometimes nade the smoke and try and pick you on the cross, you just have to be very aware of that. But at a base level, this is how you'll see teams taking mid. Now this is an extremely important concept when you're taking mid control. If you take mid, it doesn't really matter if you don't have towards B control because the Ts can just come up and shoot you in the back. This is where your B player will come into play, and your B player will throw some util to deny cheetah. So this will normally look like this Molotov, this grenade, And boom, now if they run up Cheetah, they have to smoke this molly. Sometimes that nade will actually hit them and slow them down in the molly. So if they don't smoke the Molotov, they can actually tank for 100 damage, and you can get this kill as a B player. Now, after this B player has done this util, he can go ahead and smoke off Cat, and at a base level, this is how you hold on to mid. Another extremely important thing to realize is, as the Cheetah player, if you are going to be playing here and let's say the T's throw smoke for you, you need to communicate to your mid players that, hey, they can peek off Cat. This is a communication that I see a ton of Cheetah players getting wrong, and this is extremely, extremely important because let's say I'm the Cheetah player and I don't communicate this, my mid players will say, oh, I have a player in Cheetah, he has my Cat, but you don't. So you have to communicate this as a Cheetah player. But anyway, after you throw this smoke, you can now come out here over towards mid. You can support the mid fight if the T's are fighting for mid. If you choose not to smoke this off, your teammates from mid can come jump up Cat. You can have your B site player throw some sort of flash like this that just pops in front of the cubby, pops generally around this area. So now if you're fighting down B, your Cat players can come up. Anyone down B is blind. You're not going to be because of the way the flash pops, and you can just support your team in taking down towards B. Now, after you take mid and B control, you have to understand what is important to hold. So do I want to play in towards B? Do I want to have to waste all the smokes on bottom B and slow down the T's? Or is it better to just spot over here, jiggle, do a little bit of this while you have two players holding towards mid? They can chain smoke mid. And pretty much what you'll see pro teams doing is they'll make a decision, do I want to chain smoke bottom B or do I want to chain smoke bottom mid? And from the T side's perspective, this is going to decide where they go. Now, let's say you chain smoke bottom mid and the T's were like, yo, let's go mid this round, guys, and you keep chain smoking bottom mid right. This will delay the T's default into a point where either they have to decide, do we want to go back towards B because they're just playing on mid control? Do we want to have to walk out A and deal with an op potentially? Or do we want to force it through the mid smokes after they have exhausted all of their smokes on mid? But now as CTs, you have to make a decision. How are we going to hold mid? What setups are we going to do? So a common mid setup in pro play will be one guy over here towards an off angle on Cat and one guy over here playing anti-flash, ready to peek on this guy's contact. Now, normally what that will look like is this guy gets contact, this guy will peek, and from the T's perspective, he's working out mid, right? He sees this guy on an off angle, commits to this fight, and now you peek from down here, and this should be essentially a guaranteed 1-for-1 trade. Let's say that the T's are going to be trying to walk out mid, and there's multiple numbers here. This guy, if he gets his first kill and someone's swinging out to trade him, this is how you will chain together a mid hold off of a good setup. Because if this guy gets his first kill, you peek, you kill the second guy who's trying to trade, and now at this point, it's a 5v3, you should be winning this round. Now, let's say you want to play on B control. After you've taken mid, one of the mid guys could come over towards house and spot it. He could play towards donut and just make sure that the T's can't jump up Cat to try and flank your B guys. And your B guys can play some sort of setup where, let's say, there's a guy here in this little off angle, but the thing with this angle is that he's extremely susceptible to any flashes over the doors. So you have a guy walk down and play in this corner after the door is smoked, and he'll just sit here and play anti-flash. So how this will generally play out is, let's say a guy flashes over the doors, this guy's playing anti-flash, this guy over here will get blind, he'll just spray his gun at the doorway, you are unblind, so you will come over here and kill these guys. So between this guy spraying his gun at the doorway and you not being blind and killing anyone trying to come through the doorway, this is another way that you can chain together a hold when the T's try and retake an area of the map that you have already taken. And the concept of playing anti-flash in these scenarios is extremely important as well, because you really don't want a $200 piece of utility completely annihilating your setup and nullifying all the utility and control that you've just taken. Now, the reason that I haven't really talked about A in this scenario is because if you're going to be taking towards mid and you're going to be taking towards B, you're going to need to exhaust a lot of utility. You're going to need to exhaust a lot of numbers. You want to guarantee that you're getting this control if you're playing this round. So as an A player, what this will look like is the A player will either support towards mid and play retake from donut, or you'll just put the opper over at A and he'll play retake. He'll either play CT, he can play in temple at this pixel angle, or he can play in donut and sit over here. Now, let's say you don't want to play for mid and you also don't want to play for B. And this is one of the important concepts with Ancient is you want to fight for mid and B early, or you don't want to fight for either early. You still want to throw the bottom mid smoke, you still want to throw the molly, but you want to make the decision based on what you think the T's are going to do. If you think they're going to run out mid a ton, you probably want this A player fighting mid with you, so you have 3 people mid trying to stuff mid. And if you think they're going to be trying to take B and take Cat quick, then you might want to start 3 towards B, and what that will look like is, let's say an opper's over here dealing with the ramp, you have 2 people towards Cheetah, and your mid guy is throwing util so that they can't jump up this Cat box. And then you can play some sort of bait setup in Cheetah, where you have one guy maybe here, one guy jiggling in the doorway, and again, this is how you chain together a hold on an area of the map as 2 people. You have one guy taking contact first, you have one guy not taking any contact at all, and this guy is going to be playing off of his teammate. Now, when you're in a round where you're not really playing on mid and you're not really playing on B, there's a couple reasons why you'd want to do this. Let's say the T's are being very telegraphed in where they're going. You want to let them take the control so that they can tell you where they're going. You can play 2 towards B. You can play a double cave setup where you're playing retake on towards B and you're playing for cave control. Let's say one guy's just opping this, or he's playing close, kind of jiggling like this, and you have one guy spotting the ramp, right? And what this will do is if they go up the ramp, this guy can just tuck back into Cheetah. And similar to the way that with Vertigo, let's say you're the side hall players, and if they're coming up towards A site, you want to fight into side hall. You want to make that decision. Do I fight into side hall? Do I fight on the ramp? You want to pick and choose your fights when a team is trying to execute on you. This is just another way that you can do that. Let's say you want to double in sight. You have a guy towards pillar, jiggling like this, jiggling towards Cheetah, and you have another guy towards long, and the T's trying to come towards B. This guy can just smoke off Cheetah and fight towards sight, or he can throw a smoke that pops in this doorway to just stuff the Cheetah players. So as a T, you don't really want to go through this smoke because, you know, if someone's holding this, this is a pretty bad fight for you. And this is just another way that you can try and chain together a sight hold. Similar to the concept, both players playing off of each other. Both players are going to be fighting towards the ramp in this scenario. But yeah, at a base level, this is how you're going to be holding sights. But because you've given up so much control, because the T's are being very telegraphed, now another way that you can play retake on mid over towards the A position is you can have one guy, let's say it's an opper, holding this line, so the T's can't jump into temple, they can't flank you. They also can't be on A site without you knowing because the opper's posted on this, and this is a high percentage if they walk out onto A. If the opper is getting this fight, it's going to be because the T's are walked out, right? So the chance you get this kill is pretty high. And for the other rifler in Donut, because you want to have two in Donut if you're playing retake on A or playing retake on mid, so that the Donut player doesn't get isolated if there's only one, is the second player will be over here jiggling towards mid, again spotting house cross so that you can't get flanked. Now what you notice is I haven't really talked about that fifth player, right? I've talked about 2 over towards B, I've talked about 2 over towards Donut, and this is a core concept in Ancient. So let's go back to the situation I was talking about where the T's are being very telegraphed where they're going. You don't necessarily want to have that fifth player locked into a position. You don't want to have a set up when you're playing retake on everything where every single 5 players' positions are determined before the round starts. The whole reason why you're doing this is because the T's are being telegraphed and you're playing to react off what they do. So what this fifth player's job is to rotate between the sites on where you think they're going to be. And again, for holding sites, you can generally do it with 2 players, but if you have a third there should be a very high chance that you come out on top if the T's trying to execute the site. So let's say you guys have a read that the T's are going to go over towards B. They take in all of mid. There's a lot of noise over towards Cheetah. There's a lot of noise over towards B ramp. This fifth player can just rotate over towards B. Now you have 3 towards B. You have an extra set of utility to smoke the ramp, to Molotov them, to flash for your teammates. There's so many things that this player can do to support a site execute. Let's say you have a read over towards A that the T's are going to be going A. This guy can play CT. He can try and Molotov bomb. He can throw nades. He can throw flashes to support for the Donut guys. And this guy will turn into kind of your float. This can be the opper. This can be the A player. This guy's role turns into him being a rotator. Now, the reason why I've talked so much about the CT side before I talk about the T side, just like my other videos, is to be able to understand how you should play on T side. You need to understand what the CT sides generally look like. This is where playing a slow T side is extremely important. Let's say I'm at IGL, right? And I want to play a slow round. Let's say the T's are running their mid control and their B control at the same time. They need to make this telegraphed to be able to have the proper utility to be able to take the areas of the map in case you were going to be rushing, right? So what this will look like is, again, a bottom mid smoke, a molly, a couple flashes. The B players will be throwing a ton of util as well. Your B players will be able to communicate to you as a caller what the CTs are doing. What you can do off of this is now you can make reads, right? Let's say, yo, if they're going to chain smoke bottom mid, just wait it out. Wait for them to get rid of all of their utility, and then we can do a few mid flashes and pop out on them. After their utility is drained, let's say they fall off mid and they play a retake setup, now you have all of mid control, and now you can make an end round call. And the reason why you want to play slow on rounds like these is because you're not really being telegraphed. From the CT's perspective, if they're chain smoking bottom mid or they're chain smoking bottom B and you give them no info, they don't know if they're making the right decision to chain smoke bottom mid or chain smoke bottom B. You could be walking out A, you could be waiting for the mid utility to fade, you could be waiting for the B utility to fade, and during all of these options, you could also be planning on popping through their smokes. So there's so many things that the CTs have to consider in this situation, which allows you to be able to catch the CTs off guard wherever you're going to go. And this is what will make you a good caller. Being in these situations enough, if you get enough repetitions in, oh no, they've taken all of mid, oh no, they've taken all of B. Once you've played those scenarios enough, it's easy to talk about theory from the outside looking in, but once you're actually in that situation, it might be tougher to think about on the fly. That's why when you're scrimmaging, you want to have targeted practice. You want to say, this scrimmage, what I'm going to do is let's play retake on mid this scrimmage. Let's not go fast mid. Let's not go fast into B. And let's play extremely slow and really work on our slow game so that in the future, when we do get into the slow game, when we're forced to play in the slow game, because the CTs are exhausting a lot of utility on taking mid, a lot of utility on taking B, in the future, we'll have a lot more in-game experience on how to play around these situations rather than just talking about it. Now, like in my other videos, I'm not going to focus on the micro utility of how to go about these things. What a normal mid control will look like is a house smoke, a cubby Molotov, a couple mid flashes, very basic stuff. But the concepts behind when you do these things is honestly more important than actually doing the utility itself. It's awesome that you know fast house smokes. It's awesome that you know fast cheetah control smokes, but if you don't know when to use them or how to use them, they are useless. The last thing I'll talk about is how to abuse the CT rotations to be able to get into a bomb site. So let's say from a T side perspective, you know that the CTs have all of B, you know that the CTs have all of mid, now you want to try and take one of the controls back. If you're going to take towards B, you generally, at a high level, want to throw 2 of these over the door flashes because, again, that anti-flash setup. This guy in the close cubby will turn after the first flash and stare into the second flash, and this guy over here will get blind by the first one, turn back to look at the doors, and get blind by the second one as well. So now you have a fairly high % chance of taking B control. Let's say the CTs aren't playing in towards B. Now you know that they're playing in towards mid, or they're playing retake on sites. If they're playing retakes on site, remember what I was talking about with that 5th player being the rotate. If they're not playing for any control, this is the scenario where you're going to throw fakes and try and abuse the CT rotations. This is why standard defaults are going to be 2 towards B, 3 towards mid, 3 towards B, 2 towards mid, and basically the 2 players are going to be trying to fake control in some side of the map so that the 3 players on the other side can have some sort of unexpectedness to when they go into an area. So what you can do now is, let's say you throw a right side smoke, let's say you throw a left side smoke, you throw a couple flashes, you have the third guy or the second guy who's here with you throwing a couple pieces of utility to make the CTs rotate. Now the other people on the other side of the map have gaps to walk out, because if one guy's going to rotate, that means that one side of the map is going to be weak, there's only going to be 2 people there, and the CTs will have to play retake on a certain area of the map. This is where you will catch gaps on T side. Let's say it's vice versa, and you want to take mid control. You smoke house, you throw flashes, you Molotov cubby, right? You take mid. This might force a rotate over towards A or over towards house, and now this is your gap to go towards B. You want to try and abuse that 5th player that's playing in rotation between the sites to hit the site with the less amount of players. At its core, this is how you call on Ancient. This is how you should visualize the map. You should visualize the rotations. You should understand that there's going to be a rotator if they're playing retake on stuff. There's going to be a CT rotator that's going to be going to where you're throwing the utility, where you're pressuring the map, where he thinks that you're going to be going. Today we're going to be focusing on Nuke, and by the end of this video, you guys will understand what a solid round looks like on Nuke, how to play with CT rotations, and why lower control is so important. If at any point during this video you're wondering if I do coaching, I do coaching on Medify. I have it linked on my YouTube channel and down in the description if you want to go check that out. And with that all laid out, let's get into the video. Now to start out, let's look at default CT util. So let's think of the goals here as CTs. What are we going to be trying to do at the start of the round? We're going to be trying to deny rushes, we're going to be trying to take control, and we're going to be trying to make sure that our early round will set us up for the late round. And to fully understand what we should be throwing early, we have to understand what each player's roles are on CT side. Now the outside player's role is going to be trying to create some friction versus the Ts if the Ts are trying to go down towards lower, and that could be in the form of the outside player playing around towards here, spamming smokes. He could be playing in mini. He could be throwing this default Molotov almost every single round. That's normal to stop or rush. You come over here and you just throw it like this. And that will take a lot of information from the Ts. They either have to smoke that, or they have to run around this side, which they could still tick in if they want to go outside early. Now, after that Molotov is thrown on a default, the outside player can play around towards this box. He can play around towards credit. He can play mini. He can play here. And sometimes they'll have the opper throw this Molotov so that the actual outside player can drop down lower and maybe start towards secret. So then, even though outside is somewhat open for the early round, he can come up secret and clear it in the mid round with a flash from his teammate, or late round if he just wants to sit here and watch for any Ts trying to walk into secret. Now, as far as A players go, one of the A players' jobs is going to be to deny door, and the other A player's job is going to be to deny hut. And what that will look like is generally the first spawn to A. A lot of teams play spawn-based. The first spawn to A will come over here, and he'll throw this Molotov. Now, that Molotov will basically hit off the door. If the Cheese try to nade open door early, the Molotov will actually burn inside of door. So let's say an opper is trying to go for a pick. He'll come up, he'll open the door and trying to pick towards mini. But if that Molotov gets thrown, that Molotov will actually burn all the way deep in door, and this is for damage in the early round. Now, the second A player will usually be denying hut, and that could be in the form of a hut Molotov. If you don't want to use the Molotov early, you can actually nade it, and then maybe drop down sight. Usually how you'll see it done as pro play is around 60% of the time the player will drop towards sight, and the other 40% of the time this guy will stay around towards heaven area and just hold a nade, hold a molly if he gets flashed or anything in case it is a rush. And think about from the T's perspective, right? If we're going to be doing a hut rush, I'm going to be holding a smoke for the molly. If the molly is going to be late, the person who's holding a smoke for the molly won't realize that it's getting mollied until it's too late. So what this could do is if I'm the guy who's smoking the molly, I'll be running out. Oh, they didn't throw a molly. I'm going to take my gun out now and try an entry towards site, but the molly's coming in late. So what this will do is this will actually cut off the rest of his team, and his team will either have to tank the Molotov, or because his job was to smoke the molly, his teammates won't have their smokes out, so now they have to back up and smoke it, and this is time that you can be actually swinging out heaven after that Molotov and isolating your fights. Now, after this default utility is thrown, let's say the T's didn't rush towards A, now you have to figure out who's going to smoke door, right? And the T's normally nade door on T side, and you don't want door to be blown open because that's a way that you can get picked when you're rotating to try and drop down vent. That's a way your mini player can get picked if he's somewhat exposed. It just allows for a lot of opportunities for the T's to be able to work towards A. So you want to keep door smoked majority of the round. Now, this is a common mistake that newer players and even pro players have messed up on, is you generally want the site player or the heaven player to be the first person using the door smoke, and I'll give you a reason why. As the door player, if the T's throw outside smokes and they can go down early, if my outside player is somewhere towards heaven or towards mini or something, then he's going to need to be able to get down vent. Now, you won't always count on your outside player having a smoke, because half the time he'll be throwing a smoke like this on default. If he wants to cross back big garage, he should almost always be throwing a smoke like this. And if he is a place committed in back big garage, of course he's not going to be able to use his smoke or have a smoke, because he's not going to be a factor in the round as far as rotates go. He is committed to back big garage. As the door player, you are now the lower rotate if the T's try and go towards outside. This is the reason as a door player you don't want to use your smoke, because if they throw outside smokes, you want to drop down and be able to smoke them off and deny control for rotates, and this delays them and gives you more time to get information on what they're trying to do. Now, there's a few ways that the A site player could be smoking towards door. He can come up to this area, he can aim in the center of the vent right here, and this smoke will pop directly in door. And also, if you throw the smoke directly after you molly door, it will actually pop on the Molotov and still be a good door smoke, whereas with other lineups, you need it to bounce in certain ways that it will actually hit the molly, and that could be bad for you. Another way is that you could come towards the side of silo here. You can aim to the right of the hook, and this smoke will go bounce directly into door. And this is one of the best door smokes you can throw because it doesn't puff out too much to the point where it actually makes a lurk smoke for the T's, which some door smokes normally do. You'll also see sometimes in pro play that teams will actually leave A almost completely open in the early round. They'll have one of the A players come over and molly towards door, and he'll hold a nades towards hut. And if the T's go towards A, he gets some decent damage off, but you're essentially playing on retake. And because it's so early in the round, if the T's rush A, you're going to have a ton of util on CT side, so retaking shouldn't be too hard. What pro teams will do when they only have one playing towards A and he's playing towards retake is they'll focus somewhere else on the map. So they'll focus towards outside. Maybe they'll have a guy towards mini. Maybe they'll have an opper go for a pick, which will look like a smoke right here early in the round. The opper will come around over here and go for a pick like this off of a flash. The flash that the CTs will normally throw will be coming over here into this box, aiming the bottom left corner of this and jump throwing. And where this pops is it pops directly in front of red and just over this box, so any T's coming outside will just get hit by this, and this could be a free pick for the opper. And while this is going on, you could have a third CT come over here and hold towards marshmallow, so this opper can get away if he gets a pick and needs to get out. And you'll see pro teams go for these little things because it's ways of disrupting a T's default. Let's say a T's default is normally going 3 towards outside. Let's say maybe 2 people holding towards lobby, 1 guy nades open door, etc., just normal default stuff from T sides on Nuke. This is a good way of disrupting the T side. If there's only 2 people in lobby, then the people in lobby can't react on A quick enough because they don't have the numbers. It isn't confirmed that there's 3 people towards outside, so you don't necessarily want to run out A as just 2 players. You also don't want to go ramp because 2 players going ramp, if they go 1 for 1, then it's still a very weird situation. But this is just one of the gimmick ways on CT side that you can try and get opening picks and disrupt a T default. Now we're going to move on to the ramp player. As the ramp player, your default is generally going to be mollying off the beginning, and then towards the end of the molly fading, you're going to be wanting to smoke on top of the molly, and the reason you do this is because if T's are going to be popping, they're going to wait for the molly to fade before they end up going. So if you smoke on top of the molly, you're forcing the T's to be able to either go through a smoke or go through a molly, and you're not allowing that gap between the molly and the smoke that the T's are going to be trying to abuse if they want to pop ramp. So now that you're in a situation where the T's are smoked off towards ramp, they haven't pressured you early in the round, now you want to be communicating what your plan is if the T's do pressure you on ramp. If you're one solo ramp player, the chances that you're going to be able to hold ramp versus 4 T's is extremely low. So again, let's play the percentages here. Are we going to play to drop or are we going to play to fight? This is all useful communication to tell your team. If you're going to be saying you're playing to fight, you generally want to rotate the opper. What did I just do with my maul? You want to rotate the opper over so that he can support you, and this is a good way that you can play a bait setup. Now let's think of it like this, right? If the T's are going to pop ramp, then you have time to drop. You can have a good, decent lower defense, and they're giving you a heads up on when they're coming. This will also allow the opper over here to maybe get 1 or 2 free picks while they're trying to chase you down lower. If they try to contact it, what you can end up doing is you can hold an off angle like this, where you're not exposed to this angle. So if the T's are walking to ramp, they go ahead and clear this, and now they have to clear this angle. By the time they peek this, they're not looking at you. You get a free kill. After you get this kill, you're playing a bait and switch setup. So you get this kill, you fall off a little bit, and now your opper can get the next contact. If the T's are planning on putting numbers towards ramp and contacting ramp, as soon as you get that kill, they're going to try and run you down because the ramp player is normally alone. What this will allow your opper to do is then take the next contact after you, get this pick, fall off. Now you're in a 5v3 situation. This is how teams hold bomb sites. This is how they hold positions like ramp. They always communicate. Are they playing to fight? Are they playing a bait setup? Are they playing to fall away? Are they just playing for information? And all of this is super, super useful for the rest of your team. If I'm over on A and I hear my ramp player saying he's playing to fight, I know that if the T's are going to pressure towards ramp, that means that they're going to be getting essentially end round kills in ramp. That's going to be where the mid round is going to be decided, is in ramp if the T's go ramp. This allows me to get ahead on my information, and I can already think about my rotates before they've even happened. The last player we want to talk about on CT side is the opper. Now the opper will be floating around the map. He'll be going for picks. Nuke is a fairly op pick heavy map, but for the most part, if a pick isn't happening in the very beginning of the round, the opper is going to be used as just a way of locking down a position. So you'll see an opper, sometimes he'll solo op ramp. Now he doesn't need a rotate because all he needs to do is get a pick and fall away, and he doesn't need help to fall away because he's holding such a deep angle that the T's won't be able to run up on him before he's able to get away. What this allows the CTs to do is they can stack 3 towards A, they can still play 2 towards A, and they can play 2 towards outside. It just allows for stronger holds all across the map if the opper is the one locking down one position. A huge concept for oppers is also, let's look at it at a base level. You have a one-shot gun that has a very long range. You're generally going to be playing the scenarios that are long-range fights because percentage-wise, those will favor you the most. That's why you'll see oppers opt towards this CT box over here, and they'll hold the mini wall, they'll hold this crack, they'll hold over towards here, they'll hold up towards heaven, and they'll basically play as long-range angles as they possibly can. Another way you can use the op is running down towards lower and locking down all of lower at the very start of the round. You can drop your ramp guy an extra smoke and extra molotovs, so now he can have a successful ramp hold, and you can come down towards lower, and you can op one of these angles. Now, if your outside guy is spotting outside early, he can give you the information. Can they be close on you? Can they not be close on you? And that's when you'll see oppers op positions like this, which are fairly common in pro play. Sometimes oppers will come up here, and they'll get a flash in the mid round, and they'll peek over towards top silo. But generally, if there's an opper in lower, if the T's are coming towards lower, you don't want to exhaust like 4 or 5 flashes taking lower because there are so many different angles an opper could be on. He could be on this angle, he could be on this angle, he could be on this angle right here, he can be in vent, he can be over here on this headshot angle, he could be over here. There's so many angles an opper could be, and that's why it's so annoying to deal with an opper in lower. So to sum it up from the CT's perspective, all they're trying to do is deny a rush early, set themselves up for the late round. So a T-side's goal should be to deny info so the CTs can't set up their late round. Now what this could look like is an early door nade, which will be over here. You can throw a door lurk smoke as well, which pops over here. And now you could be down vent. Now with this door lurk smoke, you're going to have a teammate that's going to come over here and molly towards top hut. And now this will completely take information away from the CTs if you're going down vent. Generally, what rotates will look like if you throw a door lurk smoke and a top hut molly is now the A players can't rotate. Unless the outside player's in secret, he can't go down to hold vent. So the ramp player is going to be the one who has to drop down. So if you throw this utility on T side, there might be a timing in ramp where you could actually go timing between the gap and the smoke and the Molotov, or just go through the smoke. And maximum majority of the time, there's going to be an opper towards J-Hall, and that might be all you're dealing with if the A players told the ramp player, hey, they could be down vent. Now the ramp player has to pick it up, and this is how you mess with rotations on CT side. And a core concept of T-sides, and this is something that you need to hammer into your brains, the T's goal is to fake some sort of lower pressure. You want the CTs thinking that you could be down lower, because if you could be down lower, this will force a rotate. And by forcing a rotate, I mean a CT has to pick up lower, or else you could just be all over B site. This concept will be in every single pro match you watch on every single default round. I can guarantee you. And this is how callers play their mid rounds. They either do outside smokes to fake lower control, they either do vent smokes to fake lower control, or they take ramp control to fake lower control. And what this will do is this will always mess with the CT side setup, and it will always do it in a way that on T side, you are in control of who's going where on the CT side. And now it comes back to the concept I've been saying in every single one of these videos. You are playing a numbers game at its core on T side as a caller. You have a certain amount of players. You want to go towards where the less amount of players on the other team are. And this is the basic concept that goes into calling. Each map has their own way of forcing rotates. Each map has their own way of going to the lesser numbers. But at its core, this is what calling is. Now, how you end up going towards sites with these situations in mind is, let's say you push off the ramp guy early, right? Now the opera has to rotate like I was talking about. And let's say you force him off, right? A common flash thrown in pro play is you do this. This flash will blind anyone towards J-Hall. He'll have to fall back to a worse angle. And now you could be in olive ramp. So now one person has to hold the J-Hall wrap. One person who's lower now has to be worried about you coming down ramp because this player's forced off. And he also has to worry about the other lower control you did, whether it be outside smokes or event lurk smoke. So this makes the round extremely sticky for the CTs. If your fake outside control was outside smokes, let's think about it this way. If it's outside smokes, the A player should be one of the guys rotating. Now, if you pushed off the ramp guy's down lower, and there's a guy towards J-Hall. What will this leave? This will leave one player towards A, or two players towards A, but usually in the form of an A player and a mini player, and the mini player will generally be around somewhere over here if he was starting outside early, or he'll be towards heaven, but again, he won't be in the bomb site. So if you set up the round in a way where you do outside smokes, you then take ramp control, this is a prime opportunity to go to the A bomb site because it's less defended. This is where you'll see teams do mid-round door pops where they smoke mini, they throw a couple flashes in mini, they molly Asia just in case the mini player came into sight, and then they'll throw a ton of flashes, usually from a guy on T roof that pop behind the silo. I'll show you right here. You go towards the side of the silo, you aim at the bottom of this area towards the window, and jump throw. And this flash will pop behind the silo, and basically what this will do is if you're coming out towards door, although it doesn't look like it with the tracer for the flash, what will actually happen is you won't get blind while you're scaling towards site, but anyone behind silo will. So if they're over here holding towards door, these flashes will destroy him, they won't destroy you. This is when you'll see teams scale up towards A, coming out door, and this is how you'll take the A bomb site off of a default in this scenario. And that's just one example. I'm not going to go through every example of faking lower control, taking space, and then hitting a site, but there are so many different ways that you can play with going down lower because there are 3 options. You can chain them in different ways and figure out which works best for your team. What's up, YouTube? I'm going to be doing another one of these map breakdowns. Today is going to be Vertigo. And Vertigo, I want to start out by saying, is very similar to Mirage in a way. And I'll show you throughout this video why that is. But people generally have a tough time playing it just because the nature of the map is a lot different than other maps. That being the verticality of it. You can hear whenever the Ts are making rotates, pretty much any rotate between both bomb sites, the Ts can hear the CTs, the CTs can hear the Ts, which makes it a very, very weird map, which also kind of means that although the rotates are very short on this map, you can go from A main to B main in essentially like 5 or 6 seconds. You kind of have to play it like they're slow rotates, just because the CTs will be able to hear you. Same thing goes for the CTs. This rotate to B is extremely short compared to other maps, probably one of the shortest rotates on all the competitive maps in the map pool right now, but it's kind of hard to rotate through here because if you rotate quickly, the Ts will be able to hear you. With that being said, though, there are ways that you can force rotates from the CTs. So let's use this for an example. The general default on T side on Vertigo is 3 towards A. So what a 3A default would look like is 3 players coming towards A. Generally, you want to have your opper towards A just because the nature of the long-range angles. In CS2, it is still viable to do a 3A default. Nothing has really changed on the map just besides the smokes. And whenever the CT smoke bottom ramp, there's actually a good chance that your opper can spot the walkout side hall. There's generally a big gap over here, so this is a way you can run your defaults with a high percentage of getting a pick. You just have to be aware that you can get peeked over the top of the smoke. Again, if we're thinking about percentages, this CT peeking over the smoke, this percentage is generally bad because he can see you, but you can also see him if you're playing one of these angles, which you will be playing more often than not holding side hall. So what an A default would look like is some sort of smoke on the ramp, generally something like this, or a lurk smoke right here so that you can lurk into side hall and get a little one-way right here. You can look over to the top of it to crane. And yeah, just it's a way of being proactive and making it look scary from the CT's perspective, right? If I'm a side hall player and I see this smoke, I'm like, well, shoot, the T can actually just walk into the smoke at any time and I won't be able to see him. He could be in that smoke right now. So that smoke just makes it really tough for the CTs, and that's been around since pretty much Vertigo was created. Now, the issue with going 3A on a T side is a lot of CTs will play 3A to try and block A or deny a ramp rush because ramp rushes are generally strong on Vertigo. You can get pretty close to the bomb site. By the time the CTs run with the fastest spawn over towards side hall, the T with the new spawns can be right here. So this is where you will meet the CT if you're RT, if you're rushing towards side hall. Now, because of this, if you get the kill on side hall, your reaction onto A can be extremely quick. Within 5 seconds, you can be on site, and if you have bomb, you theoretically could be planting. So the CT's job is to block a ramp rush at the very beginning of the round. Again, they can hear you the entire time if you are rushing A, so they have some time to prepare if you are doing so. That's why teams will generally sit around the ramp, just play a little slow, cut noise, and by cut noise, I mean you just go quiet, so now you're not giving the CTs any information. And now the CTs, since you're quiet at A, are going to be forced to rotate someone towards mid or B. And the reason for that is, let's take Mirage, for example. If you're quiet on middle, then chances are you're not towards middle, so then the CTs are going to rotate towards A, or they're going to play in mid to try and play for that control for the retake. You don't necessarily need all of mid to be able to retake on Vertigo. However, the concept that applies to Mirage is pretty similar to Vertigo. If you're quiet at A, the third A player is going to rotate towards mid. Now, he could either double mid with his teammate, or his teammate can rotate and double towards B. And generally what you'll see in pro play is if the A player rotates towards mid, he'll pick up mid from either like elevator or something, so he can rotate fast towards A, or just like CT, so that if you guys do a B wrap, then he will rotate over here, and he can help with B while there's still 2 B players, and this will generally be a pretty strong hold. What the B players will do once you double towards B is you'll see pretty commonly teams will do some sort of B re-aggression. And this is when I was playing in ECL, this was like my favorite thing to do because I was the mid player. Whenever my team would get A and the mid player would rotate, I'd have 2 ways of re-aggressing. So I'd come over here, and for the guy who's rotating in from A, I'd hold this flash. Once he gets close to the mid box, I'd throw this flash. And basically where it pops is it hits on top of this box. I'll throw it as a nade so you can see it. So it hits on top of this box and pops right there. It will blind anyone holding this angle. It will blind anyone outside here. And the best thing about it is they can't see it even from wide out mid. Just because the way I throw it from over here, this wall blocks it until it's close, and then by that time it's too late. I've gotten my A rotate so many kills by doing this flash, and it's really, really simple. Something you could even bring into your pugs. The second kind of re-aggression I would do when my mid player would rotate is I'd have him pick up mid from elevator, and I'd rotate towards B. Now, how you're going to do B re-aggressions really depends on how your B player plays. Does he like playing aggressive? Does he like playing passive? Those things will all tie into it. If he likes playing passive, he can play someplace like triple. He can just sit here. Also, an important thing about this angle, this is something Taco would use a lot, Cloud9 would use a lot once they got, or Gambit would use a lot once they got really good at Vertigo, is their B player would sit here and he'd hold this angle.
Hi, this is Polo in the post edit right now, and I'm realizing I told you to hold up top. Do not hold up top. You should be holding through the grate to CB main. Once the players start coming up into a B execute, that's when you want to hold up top. But if it's quiet, you want to hold the grate because you will get peeked and shot through the floor if you don't.
The reason you hold this angle is because if anyone's coming up here to peek generator, they're generally going to peek from deeper just because the way angles work on CS, and they won't be looking at you triple. And generally when you have a player playing triple, you want to be playing towards default. The only thing about playing towards default is 1, you're playing bait, but 2, the T's can actually boost up here, and you won't be able to fight this angle. So basically what happens in this situation is if it's a higher level player, he might recognize that this is a shadow of a person, but if this person doesn't move, a lower level player might not see this and then continue to go up sight. What this will do is now when he crosses this angle, you'll be able to see him. You can now duck and like play around here, just try and play your life while this player gets the next contact. What he can then do is he can just turn and get this free kill. And now the situation that you're in is you have a guy triple. This area is clear. If they go B, now they have to fight a guy default and they have to fight a guy triple, which is extremely hard from the T's. And this is if you want your player to play generally more passive. You can also do a similar kind of bait setup where you have a guy quad and you do the same thing where you bait from default or you bait from over here. And if they molly your teammate quad, you can just throw a flash like this behind your quad guy, and now he can get kills. And as the mid player on Vertigo, which is what I played for majority of my career, flashes are extremely, extremely important. Sometimes I would even come mid, I'd get my molly off mid, which is like the normal default utility, and I'd run over to spawn and I'd buy another flash because having 2 flashes is extremely important. 1, once my teammate rotates in, I can throw that flash for him, and then 2, if they also go B, I can also flash behind my B teammate. So your mid player is going to be generally your support player on this map. Now from a T side's perspective, while all of this is going on, this is when you could be taking ramp control, because again, there's only 2 people towards A. There's going to be 1 guy towards side hall generally, 1 guy towards ramp. Sometimes they'll double ramp. But basically what this means is one of the A players will always be isolated, or there will always be a gap, because if they're double over towards here, side hall is a gap. If they're 1 and 1, they're on islands, so they can't help each other. This is what you want to abuse on Vertigo. How you can do that is you can try and take mid control. If you know the CTs are playing 3A early, that probably means there's only 1 mid. which means you can just put 3 towards mid, 2 towards mid, just make sure you get mid control. And a very common smoke to use on T side is this. And this is kind of the secret sauce to Vertigo that will win you a ton of games. This smoke spreads so that Elevator can't hold this angle. If there's a rotate, he has to play out here to be able to spot over boost. You can throw this smoke, you can molly over boost. And then after that molly fades, there's a very, very big threat that you could be going over boost. This will almost always force a rotate from the A players, which allows you to then retake ramp control. How this would look on T side is you take mid control, and as soon as you take mid control, your teammates rotate over towards A. You throw this smoke, you throw a flash or something just in case they're re-aggressing, you molly over boost, and now you've taken all the information away from the CTs on mid, and now you have the proper numbers to retake A. While you're doing this, it's actually extremely important to let your B player know, because again, think of the re-aggression I was talking about. If you're playing against better players, once they get forced off mid, they'll say, okay, that's fine, we got forced off mid, now we'll take B main because your numbers are probably towards mid. And how the CTs can re-aggro B main is they can actually just walk up into these angles, which sounds a lot worse than it actually is, but it will actually catch a lot of players off guard. Or you can throw some sort of flash like this. This guy swings down the stairs, this guy clears underneath him, jumps up to clear this, and then you have B main. And this is how I feel that it's kind of a mix between Inferno and Mirage. Inferno is a lot of push and pull, and Mirage is a lot of play for this or play for this. And that's why Vertigo kind of is a mix between the two, because as far as mid and B go, you have to play for mid or you have to play for B. And as far as A goes, it's more of a push and pull for rotates on the T side. Something to also keep in mind is while you're doing the mid stuff, you can have a teammate bottom A. And if you're playing a lower level team, you'll be able to hear the A rotate towards mid, and that is your tell that now is your time to take A. How you could take A is you could again throw this smoke that takes off a lot of information, and you can also throw a flash like this, which is currently in meta, where you crouch over here, you left and right click, and you aim here. And this will pop over the box. It pops just under this wall, so the CTs won't be able to be ready for it. This will blind the side hall opper. This will blind anyone on ramp. And off of this smoke, this essentially gives you the space to walk up into side hall with the smoke up. And now once you get into side hall, there's a couple ways you can take side hall. You can try and take it alone, where you do a molly like this. You go into the sandbag, you aim here, and then you can throw a flash right here. You aim at this dot, and it pops like that. So this molly will force anyone who's holding side hall either away from side hall or into side hall, and that flash will just blind him. And because that flash pops behind you, you can actually throw this flash and peek with it into side hall with the flash going off. So he has to either be back turned to you while you're shooting him, or he has to stare into the flash and get blind and pray that he gets the kill before the flash goes off. Now, once you have side hall control, you have to worry about ramp aggression. That's why you'll see teams start doing Molotovs for sandbag, which is generally where CTs will kind of hide out if they're not playing on the ramp. After you molly sandbag, you know that that's clear. Now you have all of A control. This will almost always force 3 towards A. And this is what you call a default. This is what a default should look like on Vertigo. There are a couple little ways you can change it, tweak it, all that stuff. But generally, you're just going to be trying to play the rotates, figure out where the CTs are going, and then go to where they're not. Part of the nature of Vertigo, however, is that if the CTs use enough util early on the round, you can kind of abuse that by actually just going towards A. You can throw 2 smokes that completely block off the CT's vision on site. You can go into this corner, jump through this smoke, and now you have all of A site smoked off. And the reason why figuring out if the CTs have used util early and keeping note of what util they've thrown is because commonly when teams will play retake on A, they'll actually have a nade stack for the default plant, which is right here. And if the CTs generally know how to play off of A site, they will definitely know these nades, so you need to keep track of what nades they've thrown. The nades will generally look like this. You come into this corner, you aim at the top of the 6, you jump throw, and that will just destroy anyone on plant. You can also come back here, and the way that I line up this nade from back here is you want to find this little writing right here under the 2, come back here, aim a little bit underneath it, and throw, and it will just bounce off top of here, and again do around 50 damage to the planner. Both of these nades can just completely nuke your planner and lose you the round. If you don't think the CTs have util, then you can just throw these double smokes and you can take A site. I'm not going to go into all the ways you can take A site, but generally you want to throw a couple of flashes over this side, maybe flash for your side hall guy, something that looks like this. So it will blind anyone who's headshot, it will blind anyone who's close side hall, and then your side hall guy can come out and you trade out on anyone close, and then you have the bomb site. Now that we're done talking about A, we can go ahead and talk about B. Generally, how you'll see teams go B is they won't do an outright B hit. They will do some sort of mid pressure, maybe do a split from mid, or they will play it extremely, extremely late, throw a fake A execute with like 3 or 4 people sitting bottom B, and they'll walk into B when they think the B player is rotated off. This is something you'll see teams that play slower do, just because Once you run down the clock, the B player will be like, okay, there's no way they're going B. There's like 20 seconds, 25 seconds left, and then you have all of B site for free. Now, for defaulting B, you have to keep in mind that if you're playing a good player, he's generally going to be solo towards B because teams will generally be 3 towards A, and there will normally be one mid guy. He won't leave mid open. So the B player will be trying to deny a B rush because he's alone. That will usually look like a molly on the stairs, a molly like this in B main entrance, and this will pop generally before the T's get here, which means you can't go into B main, you can't pressure the one B guy. He's alone, but it doesn't necessarily matter because the utility's thrown. This is why you'll see teams not default anyone B sometimes, and the B player will actually double up mid. You can do mid pressure with 2 people. Once you do mid pressure, then the A players can go up because there's only 2 A, and then the B guy can go back to B if you want to do anything towards B, or the mid guy and the B guy can actually fall back because they did the mid pressure nades. The CT should be scared to push, and then the 2 mid players come over towards B and take B main together because, again, once you throw the mid nades, the mid guy is either going to commit to mid and try to hold that, or he's going to double towards B, and you can actually catch the B players off on some sort of re-aggression. You also have to consider the timings on this as well. Let's say the CT started in a 2-1-2 setup. They took B main early. They have one guy holding mid, and they have 2 people towards A. Once you do the mid pressure stuff, if you're going to go back into B and you think they're in a 2-1-2, you want to wait for the A pressure to go back into B main because think of the rotations. Once you do mid pressure, it might force a rotate from the A guy over into elevator, and now there's only one towards A. Now, once you start doing A pressure, now it might rotate both of the mid players back because now A is extremely weak. And because the mid player has left mid, now one of the B players has to go towards mid, and now there's a B guy isolated somewhere in B main. So generally, after all the util that you've thrown towards mid and A, B will be the weak point of the map. This is where you'll see teams go B. Good YouTube, and welcome back to How to Play at a High Level. Today we're going to be doing Dust 2, and if you haven't seen, last night Dust 2 was just added into the competitive map pool, which is why I'll be going over it for you guys today. Now, first off on Dust 2, let's talk about positions. Now, generally on A, you're going to have an A anchor, you're going to have an opper, you're going to have an A rotator, you're going to have a mid to B player, and a B player. Now, when we talk about T side, we're generally going to have a long player, an opper, a guy who usually floats between either supporting long, supporting mid, or supporting B, and you're going to have 2 B defaulters. Now, one of those B defaulters is going to be in charge of holding upper, the other one is going to be in charge of taking lower, and this upper guy will generally come over here sometimes if the lower player wants to go in, help him take lower, and then come back to worry about upper. Same thing kind of goes with the long player. If his team wants to take mid, he'll go ahead and leave long open. He'll be aware that he left a gap in long, help his team with mid, and then make sure that he's aware that they can be pushed. Now, it's important to know why you're going to take long and when you're going to take long. So you're going to take long at the beginning of the round because what you're trying to do when you take long is beat out the T's race to try and get long control. The T's are generally only going to go long if they have good spawns. They might do late pops, but generally it's going to be if they get good spawns. So what you want to do as CTs is if you are going to take long, you want to do it immediately. And because no competitive matches have been had on this map in CS2, I think it's worth creating some new lineups for you guys just so you can see what to do. Now, the first lineup I have is you come up here into this little corner, you aim in this smudge, and you aim along this bar at the top. Yes, this is a new lineup crosshair thing that they have added. I don't really know if I like it yet, but that's besides the point. You're going to aim in this area, go ahead and jump throw, and what this will do is it will bounce off of right here and pop in long doors. And what this will look like from the CT's perspective is all of doors is smoked off, and from the T's perspective, I mean, this looks horrible to go through. And after this guy smokes long doors, he can come over here and throw a couple flashes. You aim right here at the top, the plus, and then you crouch and aim down here at this little area. Go ahead and jump throw. And the reason why you want to throw this flash is because you're the support player for long. You want to have your actual long player come over here, molly off this wall so that that molly will go into blue box, which is the only place the T's can hide when they take long. So these flashes will basically get the guy coming out of blue box. That's why this flash pops over here. No, it won't blind anyone in the doors, but that's not who you're trying to blind. Now, after you take long control, you want to make a decision. Do you leave the opper to op corner? Do you leave a rifler in pit? And if you leave your opper on corner, what the rifler is then going to have to do is he's going to have to kind of play around this opper. And here's why. On other maps, I've talked about when you're kind of holding a site as 2 players, you have to decide what you want to fight if you're getting split. You can't fight both sides of the split at once, because if you do, percentage-wise, you will lose that. You are fighting a 2v4, 2v5 potentially. So what you want to do is you only want to fight one side and take a shortened 2v2 to try and come out on top of that fight. Now you can live, and now instead of coming out of a 2v4 or a 2v5 with 1 or 2 kills, you can actually come out on top with potentially 2 kills and map control and keep your life. Now, with that concept in mind, if the T's try and come up towards Cat, this rifler shouldn't stay and fight and try and hold the split like I was talking about before. He should actually just focus on one part of the split and come over towards his opper on long. What he can do after he does this is he can come over here, he can come into pit, maybe his opper can shift over here because this would be a better fight for him. And now they have long control. So the T's have gotten up cat, awesome, but they can't play post plants from anywhere towards long. This essentially forces the T's to just hold on towards cat control, and if you're going to have rotates coming from B, either they can rotate from CT and keep cat smoked or mollied, or they can rotate through mid and try and flank them. Now the same concept applies if you leave the rifler in pit. The opper will play somewhere over towards game helper. In NA, we call this area game helper. I don't know why, don't ask me. But the opper will play something like this. If the T's come up, he takes a shot, he falls back, he plays a deeper angle, he falls back, plays a deeper angle, and now he falls all the way towards long where his teammate is. And boom, same concept. The opper had 3 potential chances to get a kill, but the concept still stays true. Now what your cat setup will look like is you'll have an opper over here posted on this angle, and you'll have a rifler somewhere along this wall playing anti-flash. So basically, if the T's come over and they throw a normal flash like they always do, like this, and this flash pops over the wall, full blinds the opper. This rifler won't be blind. He can turn, get kills. Once this opper gets unblind, he can just peek back and support his teammate. And this is how you'll chain together a good cat hold. Now, there's a couple variations of this setup. You can have the rifler tuck here and play anti-flash. You could have a rifler play here and have the opper play a little deeper in this area. But most cat setups consist of someone playing anti-flash and someone holding the angle. The person holding the angle is generally going to be the opper. Now we can move on to the A support player. This is the guy who's going to be smoking along, flashing, all this good stuff. What this guy will do after you get one of those 2 controls is he'll rotate over towards mid. Now, his role is generally to stay in this area over towards A. And the reason why is because if the enemy ends up hitting towards A, he needs to be quick on the rotate to ensure that he holds on to CT and puts some pressure on the T's executing. Once the A player rotates over, this mid to B player can help towards B. And again, same to the concept I was talking about on fighting for cat or fighting for long. This guy will basically decide what the B player is doing. So the B player shouldn't play into B site if the mid to B player is also playing out of B site. He should be playing retake either from doors or from window or somewhere where he can get away if the T's do an execute. Because again, if the T's do an execute, you have 4 or 5 players coming out of tunnels. You have 1 player on site. Chances are you're not going to be able to hold that. So once this mid to B player rotates over, this gives the okay to the B player to play into site, which means the mid to B player can play somewhere over towards car. The actual B player can play somewhere towards like window or back site. And now if the T's come B, you'll have a decent hold. Now let's say the T's pressured towards long or pressured towards cat. They're trying to take some control. This will prompt the mid to B player to come over and pick up mid to B. This will prompt the A rotator to rotate back towards A because that's where the pressure is. And now the B player is kind of stuck on an island. So it's up to him to decide. Do I want to smoke off tons and maybe reposition, go somewhere that's better? Or do I want to double up with my teammate? So if the T's trying to split mid to B, I can help him fight. We can play retake on B and we can just hold the mid split. Again, the concept I was talking about earlier, you fight one side of the split. Now with all the nitty gritty of the positions out of the way, I want to go into the T side of how to actually play this map. So on T side, it really comes down to if you have long spawns. I watched so many pro matches when I was competing to try and figure out what the tell was for when T's wanted to go to long. And pretty much it was just whenever any pro team gets long spawns, they go long. And this is most likely because if you have the long spawns, long will always be the highest percentage of you winning the round. 1, because it's random if you get the spawn, so the CTs can't really predict it. 2, if you have the long spawns, you'll be out of long before the CTs can get there. And 3, it's extremely easy to flash the CTs. They essentially have no cover. If you have teammates spamming flashes over here, the CTs can't really fight this. They'll have to fall back. And if you have one final flash from your teammate that pops deep over pit, this will blind anyone in this area, so you can run out scaling with flashes, get that last flash, and kill anyone towards long. So at its core, there's a lot more places for you to hide in long than the CTs, and if you have a better spawn, you'll be there before they get there, so everything is going in your favor. Now, if you want to smoke long, you can come over here on this little railing. You can aim on the left side, bottom left side of the smudge, and just jump throw. This is probably one of the fastest popping long smokes you can throw, and it pops almost perfectly. Now you can pair that smoke with these perfect flashes for long. You come over to this corner, you aim below the palm tree, and you just go ahead and jump throw, and I'll throw it as a nade so you see where it pops. But basically from the CT's perspective, this will be owning them. There's no real way to dodge this. And the only way for the CTs to dodge this flash is if they throw their own smoke to connect with your corner smoke and run back turned, get into pit, and then switch after the flashes stop going off. Now, once you get long control, you can also throw this smoke. I don't really have a specific place to stand for it. This is why I like it, because it's a pretty free lineup. is you come over to this corner, you just make sure you're aligned with this corner and this little area right here. And you just want to shift jump throw once you cross over that corner. And this smoke will pop in the middle of the cross, giving you a perfect one smoke cross smoke. Now, the way you take mid, I don't think is really going to change too much. You can just smoke off mid doors the same way you smoke Xbox by just coming over here, aiming at this area. And because smokes are dynamic now, this will just puff straight up and block off the entire doors, doing effectively the same thing Xbox smoke would. You can still smoke Xbox though, and a pretty useful piece of util you can do for it is you come over towards mid. You don't really have to line up on anything, just go against the back wall. And you see this little smudge, just run through until you're about to hit this wall. And this smoke will just pop right there on Xbox. The reason I don't really like Xbox smokes when you can just smoke doors is because this just allows a way for your teammates in lower to possibly get singled out, which is a small thing, but it's worth mentioning. Now, after you get a smoke down that allows you to take cat, you can go ahead and molly off deep cat by aiming a little bit above the bottom of this area right here. And once you cross this line, just go ahead and jump throw. It'll bounce off of this window, pop a little deep on cat, and it will block off any angles that could potentially be peeking you. Once you're working cat, your teammates lower should be working it at the same time, so they should be coming up and getting this flash ready for you. You just come against this wall, you aim right here, and you just jump throw on this corner. And just like that, that's a pretty easy way to take cat, pretty standard, not a ton of util. And off of cat control is how you're going to win the round. Here's why. So you remember how I was talking about the A rotate comes over to pick up mid if you start pressuring towards A. So if you start pressuring towards cat, this rotator should come back, and now the mid to B guy is going to be the one who's playing on mid. If you take cat control and make it look like an execute, this mid rotator now has to decide, do I want to go support my A players and have a stronger hold on the A site? Or do I want to stay towards B and potentially catch a mid lurk when my B player could actually just rotate off of B, pick up my mid, and I could just rotate? This mid to B player is the player that you're trying to bully. And the reason why is because if he rotates off, what you can do is you can just smoke mid to B, and now there's only one player holding this whole area of the map. Now what this will look like is, let's say you go ahead and throw a cat smoke. Let's say you just throw something like this, like the old one. Maybe throw a couple flashes, like so. This player will start to rotate. You probably want to get a molly down on site as well, just to make sure it looks like you're actually going there. And then you don't even have to smoke CT, honestly. You can just come out and try and kill this guy while he's rotating towards A. He'll be coming over here, worried about trying to help the cat split. Make sure you have one guy over here faking for noise, and you can just shoot him in the back. And once you kill him, you can focus over towards the B guy. There's only one B, and then boom, you win the round. Now, if you want to actually commit towards cat, I can show you some good util for that. So what you're going to do is you're going to come into this corner with the boxes, crouch, and find this dot. Go ahead and jump through that. After you throw that, find this dot, find the line, aim at the top of the line. Come out into the open. Once you're pressed against this box, you want to throw the molly, throw the flash, and what this is going to do is the molly will burn onto site and onto the ramp. And what that flash will do is, because the molly pushes the CT back, this flash will actually just own anyone who gets forced back by this molly, giving your team a easier way to get onto A site. Doesn't have to worry about the ramp, doesn't even have to worry about this long angle because this flash will own it. I'll just go ahead and show the util I was throwing earlier. The deep CT smoke, as you come over into this corner in the little garage area. Aim right here at the top where the blue and the white pieces connect. Go ahead and throw that. And from the same exact position, you can throw that game helper smoke that I was showing. You just aim on the smudge, run jump throw once you're about to hit the wall, and this will just pop perfectly on game helper, giving your team an easier way to come up towards cat. And paired with those flashes and the mollies that I was showing before, this will be a very, very good way of taking the A site. Now, the smoke for mid B, you guys are going to really enjoy. You're going to come over to this door on cat. You're going to aim at this dot right here, this little peg on the door, and just jump through. And you only need one smoke to smoke mid to B now. It covers the top and it covers the bottom. Now in CSGO, the Ts had to smoke up top and smoke down low. And the reason why is because CTs could come over here and pick them off while they're going towards mid B. But now the Ts have all free reign on this ramp area. They don't have to worry about spawn off of just one smoke. This is huge. Now, as far as defaulting towards B goes, remember this upper guy I was talking about. He's going to be helping his lower guy while his lower guy is taking lower. And just being the one who's aware of upper B. You don't necessarily have to hold it, but you have to be aware of the gaps that you're leaving open. One way that you can pressure B is you can come over here, aim right here. And this is just a normal lurk smoke. Now, after this lurk smoke, you can come over into this corner, aim right here, and what this molly will do is it will flush out both this cubby and this cubby. So this will force the CT to either fall back on this angle or have to swing you in tunnel. This is a very easy way. If you have an opera over towards B, you can throw this util and he can just post up. This could be a very easy free kill for him. Now the next thing I want to show is just B execute util. So I'll go ahead and show you a cool little door smoke combo. If you come over to the right side of this pillar, the same pillar that you were throwing the molly and the smoke combo from, you want to aim above this corner, maybe a little bit to the left, and just make sure it goes through the window. Go ahead and throw that and aim at this dot right here above tunnel entrance. Go ahead and jump throw that flash. That flash will get anyone on site, and the smoke will get all of doors. And I'll show you that flash from a few perspectives. This is what it looks like from big box. Boom. Backside it will get as well. It'll get anyone on car because it pops right here. And it will get default on site, anywhere really on site holding tunnel. Now, flashes you can throw with this is you want to throw them into this corner just so it won't blind your teammate, but it will blind all of the CTs. The flash will pop around this area. And again, it will blind the CTs. It will blind anyone window. It will blind anyone's site. Will blind anyone big box, and it won't blind you. Now, you generally only really want to hit B if you have a read that the CTs are going to take 4 towards long or play on middle control, or you're just trying to abuse when there's only one player towards B. The time where you want to go mid is if you're playing with the rotates and you think there is only 1 or maybe 2 holding the mid to B split and they have a slow rotate. When you want to go cat is when you think that A site is weak and you think that they're playing towards long, so you can get a plant down. Let's say you have a lurk in tunnel who can late lurk, maybe kill the people who are trying to flank you. And when you're going to go long is when you have the spawns and when you think the CTs are playing on cat so that long is free and you have enough util to stop their retake. All right, well, that was a long one, but again, thank you guys for watching, and thank you guys all for the support on the series. I'll continue pumping out 3 videos a week, and yeah, thank you guys for being here, and I hope you guys found the video helpful. I'll see you guys in the next one.